Chapter 973. On the surface, the Nayland family looked like a normal family with assets of around $1 billion. They were a scholarly family and were mainly involved in the internet and cultural industries. However, in truth, their ancestor was a famous Qing dynasty official, Nayland Mingyu. Nayland Mingyu, Yehenara, was a member of the Yellow Banner of Manchuria and a powerful official of the Kangxi dynasty. He was the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Minister of Justice, the Imperial Censorate, and the Imperial Tutor of the Crown Prince. This person played an active role in Kangxi's decision to remove the 3 vassal states, unify Taiwan, and defend against foreign enemies. He was famous for a period of time and had great power. People called him the Prime Minister. Counting further back, Nayland Mingyu's father was Nurhaci's favorite general and contributed greatly to the Qing army entering the pass to establish the Qing dynasty. Mingyu's sister was also Nurhaci's concubine and Huang Taiji's mother. Hence, the Nayland family was a true royal family. Counting further back, the Nayland family had many talents. Nayland Mingyu's son, Nayland Qingde, surpassed his father. He was a grand scholar in the 15th year of the Kangxi dynasty, an imperial bodyguard, and a famous poet in the Qing dynasty. Some later generations commented on her work, elegant and graceful, yet sentimental and stubborn. Her style is profound and unique. Later on, Nayland Qingde was tired of his career and resigned. It was recorded in the history books that Kangxi once saw him off 15 li before parting with tears in his eyes. For a time, it was passed down as a beautiful story. After resigning, Nayland Qingde came to Wuzhen to live in seclusion. However, the Nayland family did not cut ties with the Qing dynasty. They worked as a weaver in Jiangnan for hundreds of years and provided clothes for the Qing dynasty palace. Slowly, they formed a huge Nayland family. Kangxi visited Jiangnan incognito several times and stayed at the Nayland family. He talked with Nayland Qingde through the night and slept together. In the entire Qing dynasty, the Nayland family had a deep influence. They were like a pillar that supported the country and could not be shaken. Jiang Chongging narrated the Nayland clan's 300 years of history, revealing everything in front of Jiang Tian. In the Republic of China, after the founding of the country, the Nayland family was very low-key. They only engaged in some economic affairs and seemed very inconspicuous. But as far as I know, Yi Wudao, the old grandmaster of Jiangzhe, has never dared to offend the Nayland family. Jiang Chongging frowned. Clearly, the Nayland clan is still as powerful as ever, and is still as rich as ever. In fact, they have what it takes to make Leaf Dao Denier nervous. Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed slightly and flashed. Back then, the most prominent power in Jiangsu and Zhejiang was the Yi Wudao family, which had a good relationship with Jiang Tian. They were the descendants of the Qing gang and were a martial arts family. Back in the day, the ancestors of the Yi clan had dominated the Tenli ocean field. They were neck and neck with Du Yusheng and Huang Jinrong. Yi Wudao's generation had preserved their bloodline. Their prestige had shaken the entire lower reaches of the Yangtze River. Whether it was wealth, authority, or wealth, they were all top-notch. However, most people did not know that there was a hidden family in the Jiangzhe region that suppressed the Yi family. It was the Nayland family with a history of 300 years. They were far more powerful than the Yi Wudao family and even the martial arts families in Yanjin. But the more I think about it, the stranger it gets. Their existence is very strange. Jiang Chongging looked at Jiang Tian thoughtfully, as if he was referring to something. Yeah, how could there be a family in Huaxia that has a history of hundreds of years? Jiang Tian pondered for a while and nodded. If it's just a family, how could it survive the Qing dynasty, the Republic of China, and the new era for 300 years? There's only one explanation. What is it? Jiang Chongging asked. The Nayland family is very likely to be the legendary dragon guardian, the peripheral power of the reclusive royalty. Jiang Tian's eyes flickered and said coldly, if they have no strength and only wealth, they would have been torn to pieces and disappeared in the turbulent history of the Republic of China and modern times. If it was before or even in his previous life, Jiang Tian knew nothing about the Nayland family. However, Ever since he learned from the Pentagon that there was a reclusive royalty in Huaxia, he asked the intelligence department of Tianqing School to investigate. Moreover, Sidu Shao Yi Tianren, the Hong sect, and the Huaxia Long formation shared information with each other. After a period of investigation, Jiang Tian had a deep understanding of the reclusive royalty. Actually, I have also studied a lot of information from the intelligence department over the past few days, and I think that is very likely. Jiang Changing asked curiously, but they are too low-key, aren't they? Low-key is the characteristic of the reclusive royalty. Jiang Tian smiled and said, although they are powerful, their luck has been cut off. It is impossible for them to fight for power, so they are very low-key and rarely appear in public. Jiang Changing said lightly, as I said before, the Nailan family might not be targeting the Jiang family. In fact, Zhao Huqing faintly revealed that the Nailan family doesn't like this granddaughter of theirs, Qingya. Jiang Tian frowned. He suddenly thought of a possibility. In fact, when Jiang Tian returned to Linzhou City before the Spring Festival, his divine sense had discovered that Zhao Xueqing and Zhao Huqing were not related. Zhao Xueqing's biological father was someone else. This could also explain why Zhao Huqing was so cruel to Qingya and used her as a bargaining chip for his own interests. However, Jiang Tian did not ask and pretended not to know. Because it would hurt Qingya no matter what if he brought up this issue. At this time, Jiang Tian could not help but think, could it be that the Nailan family knew all this and was biased against Zhao Xueqing? I don't know either. Jiang Changing shook his head, then smiled proudly and said, however, now that you and your wife control a country and a religion, you have shocked the world and suppressed the major countries. In the end, the Nailan family is just a fallen aristocrat. How would they dare to look down on you? In this regard, Jiang Tian could only smile and say nothing. The old master of the Nailan family was called Nailan Bo. After leaving Jiang Tian's courtyard, Jiang Changing's warning still appeared in his mind. Nailan Bo is almost 100 years old. He has experienced the vicissitudes of life and is calm and indifferent. However, his son, the current head of the family, Nailan Li, seems to be very ambitious. He has a bit of influence in the reclusive royalty, so he must be domineering and tough. Although you now control a country and a religion, the Pentagon bowed their heads to you, and Yi Tianren is your disciple. However, the reclusive royalty has always thought highly of themselves and are extremely arrogant. They may not have a good face for you. In any case, they gave Qingya life. We are also relatives. The strength of the reclusive royalty is not a small matter. You must not let your emotions affect your decisions and make enemies from both sides. Although Jiang Changing was very worried, Jiang Tian did not take it to heart. In his opinion, no one could bully Qingya. If the Nailan family wanted to slight Qingya, Jiang Tian would not be polite. In fact, his grandfather did not know that he had already set foot in the stellar sky domain and killed hundreds of exalted immortals. According to Bai Zhe and the others, these royal families were only the agents of the dimensional world in the earth domain. Why would Jiang Tian be afraid of them? Teacher, we will go with you. After hearing the news, Hua Qingtian's disciples took the initiative to find Jiang Tian and said sincerely, we have received information that the Brahmin and Holy See, and even some experts of the European reclusive royalty have already sneaked into Huaxia. It is very likely that you will encounter them. Yes, that's good. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, the Holy See, Brahmin, these bastards dare not come to Sidoni. They are afraid of the Kulian. Your cultivation is improving rapidly now, but you still need to gain experience. This is a good opportunity. These disciples were very likely to follow him to conquer the dimensional worlds and the immortal ruins in the future. They were considered first-class experts on Earth, but compared to those in the dimensional worlds, they were lacking in both cultivation and combat experience. The Holy See, Brahmin, and even the European reclusive royalty might be on par with them in cultivation. This kind of training was the safest and most effective. Master. The supreme giants were all excited. This meant that the counterattack had begun. Also, my fourth uncle has developed a small mobile Kuelian. When the time comes, if you can't defeat them, lure them in and blow them into pieces with one shot. Jiang Tian laughed as he pointed at the military transport vehicles and said, "Watch carefully." Zhang Chenzhen raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. A few soldiers pulled away the military tarpaulin, revealing the true appearance of the Kuelian. This Kuelian was similar in appearance, but it was a miniature version. It weighed only a few tons and was very mobile. One military transport vehicle could carry one. Although it was not as powerful as the large Kuelian, it had no problem killing celestial immortals. However, this research result was a great improvement for Jiang Tian and Zhang Chenzhen. The technical requirements were also higher. One should know that the Kuelian was originally not a large Dharma artifact. It was only because of the limitations of the metal materials on Earth that it could not withstand a huge amount of energy and could easily be damaged by an explosion. Therefore, it had to be enlarged 10 times or even 100 times. Now, Zhang Chenzhen had made a breakthrough in the research of metal materials. After listening to Zhang Cheng'en's detailed data, Huaqing Tian and the others were excited. They rubbed their hands and laughed. "Ha, good, good, good. With the small Kuelian, the Holy See and Brahmin are here to die. Master, you don't have to do it yourself. We can do it." "That's right. I didn't plan to do it in the first place. They are not worthy of me doing it." Jiang Tian sipped his tea and smiled faintly. "This time, I'm giving you a chance to train. You have to do your best and beat the crap out of the Holy See and Brahmin. I'll be behind you." Chapter 974. Jiang Tian and his wife took Sidu Shao, the left guardian, Huaqing Tian, Zhao Yuankuan, and Wei Feilong on a private plane. Several transport planes took 5 small Kuelian cars and related technical personnel to Huaxia and to Zhonghai. When Jiang Tian flew to Huaxia, in a mansion with white walls and black tiles in Wu town of Jiangzhe, a middle-aged man in a gray gown, who looked like a great scholar from the Republic of China, was in the living room with a middle-aged beautiful woman in a cheongsam. They were drinking green and clear Dongting Biluakun before the Ming dynasty with a good blue and white antique teacup of Yuan dynasty. The fragrance of the tea was everywhere. Not to mention the simple and old building, the dazzling array of antiques on the antique shelves, the famous landscape paintings hanging on the wall. Just the 2 teacups in their hands were worth tens of millions, which was equivalent to a year's profit of a small and medium-sized listed company. The Dragon Protector clan had a deep foundation and was rich and noble. Nailin Iran's daughter suddenly returned to the province to pay homage to her birth mother. She is a bastard of unknown origin. Why did father ask us to treat her well? What the hell is this? Isn't it a disgrace to our noble family? She should be kicked out. The beautiful middle-aged woman was adorned with jewelry and had a beautiful face. She seemed to have reached the transcendent state. However, her eyes were cold and arrogant. It was obvious that she was not a person to be trifled with. He, that husband of hers, is an amazing person. Nailin Li was elegant and tall. His eyes were shining and his breath was deep. He was half a step away from the immortal state. He said with a faint smile, "I know the Jiang family. The Medicine King group is doing well, but they are not noble. How can they be compared with the Dragon Protectors?" Li Roshi sneered and said disdainfully, "Besides, I have heard of Jiang Tian. He is just a good-for-nothing and then went crazy. He can't be compared with our son and daughter. Roshi, when can you open your eyes and ears and see the outside world?" Nailin Li shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Jiang Tian is the world's #1 expert, Kong Teichu." What? It was actually him? How is this possible? Li Roshi's face was filled with disbelief, as if she had seen a ghost. She was originally not interested in worldly affairs. She was engrossed in cultivation and the small affairs of the Manchu Qing remnants. Therefore, she knew very little about the news of the outside world. At this moment, she couldn't accept the fact that a good-for-nothing hedonistic lunatic was the world's #1 expert. This is the truth. Nailin Li laughed. Yi Wudao of Jiangsu and Zhujiang was killed by him. Several famous martial arts tyrants from Huaxia have all pledged allegiance to him. Leaf Dao Denier isn't a match for him. Li Roshi was surprised and incredulous. The Jiang clan is just an ordinary clan. Where did Jiang Tian get his martial arts inheritance from? Could it be that he joined a large sect? Joined a large sect? Nalan Li sipped his tea and said with a smile, more than half of the hidden sects in Huaxia, except for the Kunlun sect, Kong Teichu is the fifth. Nalan Li obviously had special intelligence channels and had conducted an in-depth and comprehensive investigation on Jiang Tian. Except for some extremely secret information, he basically knew everything. Then he told Li Roshi about Jiang Tian's achievements in detail. How is this possible? Even Yi Tianren was defeated by him. He shook the universe shield and blue storm and suppressed the superpowers of the world. Where did he learn such powerful skills? After listening to the story, Li Roshi's face was filled with shock and disbelief. I also think it's strange. Nalan Li furrowed his brows and revealed a thoughtful expression. He's young, not even 30 years old, but his strength is comparable to a divine immortal and he controls a country and a sect. This is incredible. A divine immortal. The limit of human cultivation on Earth was very rare in history. Even in the Middle Ages, where immortal state cultivators were everywhere, there were only a few divine immortals. Moreover, many of them were illusory records. Whether they were real or not was still a question. Even in the reclusive royalty and the Dragon Protection clan, there had never been a divine immortal. Jiang Tian actually had this kind of cultivation, could be said to be an extremely talented individual, the most powerful one in the last 1,000 years. Let's not talk about his cultivation first. Why did the couple come to our house this time? Li Roshi asked with a frown. Nalan Li frowned and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, his eyebrows relaxed and he said with certainty, I think he's here to ask for our help. Ask for our help? Li Roshi could not believe it. She said, he controls a country and a sect and is invincible. Why would he need our help? Nalan Li was the most powerful person in the Nalan family's Dragon Protection clan, but he was only half a step away from the immortal state. Jiang Tian was several levels higher than him. Even his disciples were stronger than him. Why would he need the help of the Nalan family? You don't know. Nalan Li smiled proudly and explained, Jiang Tian has offended too many forces. This time, the Holy See and the Brahmin have declared that they will attack Jiang Tian. How can he do it? Tianqing school is so powerful. Maybe he can't? Li Roshi frowned and said, as far as I know, Jiang Tian used a saber technique to reverse time and space in order to save Yi Tianren in the battle with Yi Tianren. Nalan Li continued. Reverse time and space. This is equivalent to stealing from the heavens and changing the laws of heaven and earth. Did he succeed? Li Roshi's face turned pale with shock and disbelief. There were many Dharma spells and divine powers. A transcendent state overlord could fly and condense chi into soldiers to kill people in the air. A perfected cultivator could use the art of Chimen Duanjia to summon soldiers and summon the wind and rain. However, all of this was based on the laws of heaven and earth. It was just the use of the laws of heaven and earth. But reversing time and space was different. This was breaking the laws of heaven and earth. There were only rumors about it, but no one had ever successfully used it. He did it. Celestial Yi, you've left and come back from the dead. Nalan Li shook his head and heaved a sigh. He did it. This was simply too inconceivable. Is he a true god? Li Roshi was so shocked that her head was about to explode. He is not a true god. Maybe he has some kind of ancient secret art that allows him to reverse time and space. Nalan Li's eyes flashed as he said in a low voice, however, he was injured. He vomited blood on the spot and his black hair turned white. His aura weakened as if he had aged a few decades in an instant. His lifespan has been damaged. I'm afraid his true chi cultivation will be damaged too. Li Roshi said with certainty. True chi cultivation, fleshly body, psyche, divine ability, and lifespan, these few aspects were unified in cultivation. They were bound together for good or ill. Usually, if one of them was damaged, the others would be seriously affected as well. So, I guess Jiang Tian and his wife have returned to the province to ask for help. Nalan Li's eyes flashed with wisdom as he nodded. The Holy See and the Brahmin are the most powerful forces in the world. They have many holy kings and even a few extremely powerful holy sages. It's fine if Jiang Tian's cultivation is still there. Now that it's gone, won't they need our help? After all, we are the Dragon Guardians. Not only do we have a close relationship with the Qing royal family, but we also have connections with the reclusive royalty of the other Huaxia countries. That's not a small force. I see. Li Ro, she had a sly look on her face as she said, "Husband, what do you mean?" "He can ask for our help, but he has to pay a price." Nailin Li said in a scheming manner. "If the deities of the heavenly star small world want to descend, they must have a place to stay. I think Jiang Tian's Sidoni is a good place. If we can complete this mission, will we be able to ascend to the heavenly star small world? Legend has it that that is the place where the deities live." Li Ro, she was extremely excited. Her beautiful eyes sparkled. Although she couldn't go, she yearned for it. A luxury passenger plane named Suihang 811 slowly landed at Zhonghai International Airport. This plane was designed and assembled by Sidoni's state-owned aircraft factory in collaboration with Huaxia. It had its own intellectual property rights. In the international market, this model of plane could compete with the classic models of Boeing and Airbus. Jiang Tian, the Jiang family, the Medicine King Group, Tianqing School, Shenyang and other state leaders, of course, supported the state-owned enterprise and used a batch of it first. And this plane was specially made for Jiang Tian. It cost $400 million, and the modification cost was as high as $100 million. It was luxurious, elegant, safe and comfortable. If word of this got out, those little rich second-generation heirs who flaunted their supercars would feel ashamed of their inferiority. At the airport, Yi Zhantian immediately brought the soldiers of the Huaxia Dragon Group to pick them up. Yi Tianren and the old dragon were still fighting on the battlefield. What's the situation now? In the VIP tea room of the airport, Jiang Tian held a brief meeting and asked lightly. The Huaxia Long Formation is at the southwest border of Tibet, near the Lancang River. We have encountered the Brahmin overlords of the Holy See. Yi Zhantian stood solemnly and reported with a serious face. We have suffered heavy casualties. The White Tiger is dead, and many transcendent grandmasters have also fallen. However, after my father joined the battle, the situation was reversed. The enemy also lost a lot of people. A Holy King Red Cardinal was killed and 3 Holy Kings were severely injured. Chapter 975. As the saying goes, great waves wash away the sand. You all need to train. Jiang Tian's face was emotionless. There will be more challenges in the future. You all need to get used to this kind of cruel battle. Jiang Tian was deeply saddened by the sacrifices made during the Huaxia Long Formation. These were the backbone of the nation, the elites of the nation. However, Jiang Tian could not protect them forever. After all, Jiang Tian had to conquer the universe and leave Earth in the future. Therefore, they needed cruel battles to improve their cultivation and combat power. They needed to be tempered by blood and fire to sharpen their sharpness and the ability to stand on their own. The training ground could not produce a truly peerless overlord. During this process, sacrifices were unavoidable and even necessary. In Jiang Tian's view, the invasion of the Holy See and Brahmin was a rare opportunity for training. If the West Earth and the heavenly realm behind them were to attack, the Huaxia Long Formation might not even last a day. I understand. We will not let you down in this battle. Yi Zhantian said vehemently. However, he hesitated and said worriedly, the enemies are coming. However, the enemies keep coming. Now, the Vatican and the Brahmin sect have sent out 400 to 500 transcendent realm experts. In addition, there are dozens of sage kings and saints. And they are stretching the battle line. I am worried that once the line is broken, it will not be so easy to kill them one by one. Don't worry. Didn't you see that Situ Xiao and Huaqing Tian are here? They will help you. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Also, we have a secret weapon. I guarantee that it will shock the world. Huaqing Tian said with a smile. That's great. Now, the cultivation world of Huaxia is safe. Yi Zhantian was so touched that tears welled up in his eyes. After analyzing the situation, Jiang Tian asked the overlords of Tianqing School to join the battle. Meanwhile, he and Zhao Xueqing rushed towards Wuzhen. In addition to Yi Zhantian and the others, Jiang Tian's sister-in-law, Zhao Qianru, also came to pick them up. Zhao Qianru was here to take care of Zhao Xueqing. The child in Zhao Xueqing's stomach was the pure immortal phoenix body. Jiang Tian suspected that she might not be able to give birth even after 10 months. This was not surprising. In the world of cultivation, some immortal fetus saints might only be born after 5 to 10 years of pregnancy. Because they no longer had mortal bodies, the qi, blood, and nourishment they needed were also different from ordinary people. But after all, Zhao Xueqing was already 7 months pregnant. Her belly was very big, and it was difficult for her to move around. In terms of taking care of people, Jiang Tian was clumsy, so it was more suitable for Zhao Qianru to take care of him. "Sis, your stomach is so big. Oh my God, I'm going to have a niece. I'm going to be an aunt. I'm so happy." However, Zhao Qianru was overjoyed. She carefully supported Zhao Xueqing to the airport parking lot and sat in a red BMW. Zhao Qianru drove the car to Wuzhen. 3 hours later, they finally arrived at the Nayland family's mansion. Wuzhen was a typical water town in Jiangnan. Boats with black awnings slowly sailed on the river that extended in all directions. There were people washing rice, washing clothes, washing vegetables, and children playing by the river. The sun was setting in the west, and the afterglow dyed the small bridge, flowing water, houses, old houses, deep alleys, and long corridors. Almost all of them were old buildings from the Ming and Qing dynasties. In front of them was an ink painting that had been circulating for thousands of years. It's so comfortable here. It's as if people who come here are much more energetic and refreshed. After parking the car outside the Nayland family's mansion, Zhao Qianru got out of the car. She could not help but stretch her arms and sighed with intoxication. Zhao Xueqing looked up. What he saw was a small but exquisite courtyard. On the lintel of the door, there was a golden plaque with a black background. Written horizontally were the 3 large words Hidden Dragon Dock, and vertically were the 2 small words Imperial Creation. As expected of a 300-year-old family. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. According to local records, during the early years of Kangxi, Wuzhen was originally a barren land. The current Wuzhen was built around the Hidden Dragon Dock, so it was also called the Hidden Dragon Dock Town. After the Republic of China and the establishment of a new regime, the Hidden Dragon Dock had shrunk a lot. The name was then changed to the current abbreviation. Jiang Tian flipped through the historical records and found that the original Hidden Dragon Dock occupied almost half of Wuzhen. It had a radius of several thousand acres. This is the place where Mother grew up. Zhao Xueqing glanced at the carved corridors and painted buildings. Her eyes were slightly red and she could not help but feel sorrowful. "It's just as I expected," Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He saw that there was a small spirit gathering array around the Hidden Dragon Dock. The spirit qi within a radius of 5 to 6 miles was continuously gathered here. To Jiang Tian, a spirit gathering array of this scale was of course nothing. It was even inferior to the mountain protection array of Wudang sect. However, compared to the average martial arts family, it was still far superior. This is probably the origin of the Hidden Dragon Dock. There is a dragon vein hidden here. Jiang Tian even discovered that there was a small dragon vein in the surrounding rivers. Although it had already dried up, the size of the dragon vein was still impressive. Back then, Nayland Chengde suddenly resigned and came here to guard the dragon vein. He wanted to prevent other families from taking over the dragon vein and robbing it of its fate, which would lead to the downfall of the Qing dynasty's royal family. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. He had some understanding in his heart. At this time, a muscular man in a black suit came forward and asked respectfully, "Are the 3 of you our guests?" This man should be the head bodyguard of the Hidden Dragon Dock. He was a transcendent state cultivator and could be considered a grandmaster in the outside world. "I am here to visit my grandfather and grandmother." My mother is Nailin. Zhao Xueqing said softly. Oh, so you are the daughter of the fourth lady. The old lady was still talking about you just now. Why aren't you going to report to her? The head bodyguard quickly bowed and saluted. Two girls who looked like maids heard the news and came to accompany them. One of the bodyguards quickly went in to report. After entering the gatehouse, there was a corridor on both sides. In the middle was a hall with a large marble screen on a sandalwood shelf. After turning the screen, there were 3 halls. Behind the hall was the main building. It was full of carved corridors and painted buildings. There were pavilions on both sides, 9 winding corridors, rockery, and strange rocks. Under the eaves, there were various kinds of birds, such as parrots and thrushes, making pleasant sounds. Jiang Tian and the others just walked into the hall. They saw 2 maids supporting a silver-haired old lady with a kind face to welcome them. Grandma. Zhao Xueqing was just about to greet her. My poor child. The old lady threw away the dragon-headed cane and hugged Zhao Xueqing in her arms. She cried out with her heart and her face was full of tears. The maids next to her also covered their faces and cried. Zhao Xueqing's eyes were also red and tears flowed out. Although she rarely came to the Nailin family, her grandmother and grandfather had always loved her very much. This was one of the few times in her lonely childhood that she felt the warmth of family. At this time, Li Roshi also came over with 2 aunts. She smiled and advised, Qing'er has grown up and came to visit grandfather and grandmother. This is a good thing. Don't cry. Be careful not to hurt your body. The old lady just kept crying. She kept talking about Zhao Xueqing's suffering and grievances when she lost her mother at a young age and lived under someone else's roof. Li Roshi advised again, Mom, it doesn't matter if you cry. If you make Qing'er cry, she is pregnant. Don't affect the baby. Only then did the old lady gradually stop crying. She looked at Zhao Xueqing from head to toe and said with a benevolent smile, Come to think of it, Qing'er hasn't been back for 16 years. Now you're a big girl and even a mother. She looked at Jiang Tian with admiration. She held Jiang Tian's hand and said with a smile, Young man, you're very spirited. It's Grandpa and Grandma's fault. That year at your wedding, my chest was injured and I couldn't attend. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense and found that there was indeed an old injury on the old lady's chest. It was faintly caused by the holy light. He knew that she was not being polite. Jiang Tian had a good impression of her and quickly said, Grandmother, we are not sensible. It has been so many years, and we have not come to visit you. Zhao Xueqing greeted the 3 aunts one by one. Jiang Tian and Li Roshi were then led into the living room and sat down as the host and guest. This kind of hundreds of years old big family kept some traditional ancient style. There were some picture frames hanging on the wall, and there were all kinds of photos inside. Jiang Tian glanced and asked with a smile, Qing'er, which one is our mother? Zhao Xueqing pointed to a black and white photo and said with a smile, This is her. She is even more beautiful than me. They are all beautiful. Jiang Tian smiled. Nailin was about 10 years old at that time. She was wearing a cheongsam, and her face was gentle and pretty. But Jiang Tian found that Nailin and Zhao Xueqing did not have the slightest similarity in appearance. Moreover, the old lady did not have the pure phoenix immortal body. She was just an ordinary physique. He could not help but secretly wonder. Zhao Xueqing and the old lady chatted for a while. She smiled and asked, Grandmother, where is my grandfather and 3 uncles? There are distinguished guests visiting today. They went to receive them. The old lady said with a smile, When they are done, we will meet together. I have already sent someone to inform them. Distinguished guests. Jiang Tian's divine sense was like a monstrous wave. It passed through the house and the courtyard, and silently broke the array restrictions in the house. In an instant, it enveloped the entire back garden. Sure enough, their background is not small. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He lowered his head and drank tea. The corner of his mouth could not help but show a meaningful smile. Chapter 976. At the same time, in the backyard of the Nailin family. In this backyard, every brick, every stone, every blade of grass and every tree had a history of hundreds of years. It was passed down from the Kangxi era. In the beginning, this place had been through wars and countless lives had been lost. However, it had never been damaged in the slightest. It had stood strong in Wu Town for 300 years. This was because there used to be a grand protective array that could withstand machine gun fire and cannonball bombardment. Every bonsai, every rockery, and even the teacups and saucers had witnessed the vicissitudes and history of the dragon protection family. In a gazebo, Nayland Bo, the old master, was sitting at the head of the table. He was chatting with a middle-aged man in a bright yellow robe. They were playing chess and drinking tea. Although Nayland Bo was almost 90 years old, his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. His breath was long and his body was as straight as a mountain peak. He was filled with the aura of a person who had been in power for a long time. He was already half a step away from the immortal state, but few people knew about him. If he showed up, it would cause a huge uproar. Beside him, the current head of the Nayland family, Nayland Li and his two younger brothers could only stand respectfully and serve tea. Meanwhile, on the chessboard, two dragons, one black and one white, were locked in a fierce battle. It was hard to tell who would win and who would lose. Uncle Nayland, your chess skills are amazing. I am not as good as you. In the end, the middle-aged man heaved a sigh and gave up. You are only 45 years old, but you already have such a powerful killing move. You are indeed the descendant of the royal family of the Qing dynasty. Nayland Bo laughed and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. However, deep in his eyes, there was a hint of fear. This young man was the descendant of the reclusive royalty of the Qing dynasty. He was the current head of the Jin family and the real crown prince, Jin Sohyun. He had hundreds of overlords who were loyal to the royal family. They were all at the transcendent state and two of them were at the immortal state. He even had the imperial seal of the Qing dynasty and many other Dharma treasures and Dharma artifacts in his possession. Hidden Dragon Dock. Jin Zishuan stood up and muttered the name of the manor. He seemed to have unintentionally said, back then, Master Kangxi named the waterside villa, Hidden Dragon. Doesn't that mean that the true dragon is hidden and the treasured sword is hidden? Once the world changes, the hidden dragon will emerge from the abyss, soar through the 9 heavens, and the treasured sword will be unsheathed to slaughter the world? Nayland Bo's expression changed slightly. He took a sip of tea and muttered, My lord, you've misunderstood. Every dynasty has its own royal Qi dragon vein. The Sui dynasty was in Hongnong, the Tang dynasty was in Chang, and Enlongxi, the Song dynasty's dragon vein was in the area of Kaifeng and Luoyang. Our Qing dynasty's dragon vein was in the Changbai Mountains Yongling. Although my Nayland family is part of the dragon guardian lineage, there are 2 types of dragon guardians. One is to protect their own dragon vein and the other is to suppress other dragon veins. Lord Kangxi, Lord Yongjing, and Lord Qianlong have worshipped our own Yongling's dragon vein 3 times. That place was guarded by an ancient bronze door. Later generations were not allowed to rashly enter, or else the heavens would punish them. At that time, the 3 masters only paid their respects across the river. They did not dare to rashly approach it. As for the dragon vein in Wuzhen, it does not belong to us and will not protect us. It will only fight for the fate of the Qing dynasty. At that time, the imperial advisor of the Kangxi dynasty discovered that there was a dragon vein here and that the true dragon was about to emerge. Lord Kangxi was shocked and sent my Nayland family's Cheng Dezu to set up a feng shui formation to suppress the dragon vein. 10 years later, the dragon vein here was cut off. This was equivalent to extending the glory of the Qing dynasty for 300 years. Our mission has been completed. Nayland Bo finished gathering the chess pieces and extended his hand. He smiled and invited them, let's continue playing. My lord, let's continue playing chess. Nayland Li and the others are not good at chess. This old man hasn't been so happy in a long time. He wanted to change the topic and was unwilling to talk about this matter. However, Jin So-hyun would not let him do as he wished. This square chessboard only has 19 lines and 108 chess pieces. What's the point of it? Jin So-hyun was calm and composed. However, he looked at Nalanbo with a burning gaze and said, "A real man should use the 8 wastelands and 4 directions as the chessboard, the mountains, lakes, and seas as the chessboard, and the people of the world as the chess pieces. We should win glory and leave our name in history. The Jin family has been in seclusion for 300 years. Now it is time for us to come out. The Nalan family has always been the trusted aid of the Jin family. Are you going to stand by and do nothing?" Nalanbo's eyes suddenly lit up. Then he lowered his eyelids and played with a chess piece. He tapped the chessboard lightly and said with a faint smile, "Nephew, the Qing dynasty has come to an end. Now Hua Xia is working hard to govern the country. The officials love the people like their own children. The seas are flowing and the rivers are clear. The economy is booming and the people are living and working in peace. This is a glorious era that has not appeared in 1,000 years. Do you think you still have a chance?" Nalanbo, the world is changing. The spiritual energy is recovering. The original logic will change. Jin So-hyun only smiled and said bewitchingly, "In the future, it will be a chaotic era where the immortal realm experts will appear. It will also be a time of great bloodshed. You have forgotten about one person, Kongfu." Nalanbo hesitated for a moment and said coldly, "This person has already reached the heaven immortal realm and is the strongest person in the world. He can even suppress the Pentagon and is on good terms with the Huaxia Long Formation and Huaxia. Who can defeat him?" A few months ago, the Heavenly Star's small world had already contacted the Jin family. Jin So-hyun's face was very serious, but his eyes were shining with greed. He was like a hungry wolf. "The stellar sky domain will enter the earth domain soon. That's an immortal we're talking about. How could an ordinary person possibly imagine their background? No matter how strong Kong Taechu is, he can only be the king of this wasteland world. How can he be compared to the experts of the stellar sky domain? The background of the stellar sky domain is not something Kong Taechu can compete with." Jin So-hyun smiled disdainfully and said, "The spiritual energy there is as vast as the sea. The experts there are as many as the clouds. There are tens of thousands of heaven immortals there. In their eyes, Kong Taechu is nothing. He is just an ant that can be crushed easily." The more Nalanbo listened, the more frightened he became. His face became more serious. Although he and Jiang Tian had never met before, Jiang Tian was his grandson-in-law. He did not want to see anything happen to his grandson-in-law, and he did not want to see Zhao Xueqing sad. Before this, he was very confident in Jiang Tian and hoped that Nalanbo would back off. But now, he began to worry whether Jiang Tian was a match for him. Finally, Nalanbo's body trembled. He could not take it anymore. He sighed and said, "My lord, I have something to report." "What is it?" Jin So-hyun smiled and said, "Kong Taechu is my grandson-in-law. Please don't make things difficult for him, my lord." Nalanbo stood up, bowed deeply, and said sincerely, "I didn't expect this." Jin So-hyun was stunned for a moment. Then he clapped his hands and laughed. "I didn't expect your grandson-in-law to be the famous Kong Taechu. But which granddaughter's husband is he?" Mysterious clans like the Nalan clan had a flourishing population, spreading branches and leaves, and had many children. Nalanbo had as many as 6 daughters and as many granddaughters as he could count on 2 hands. "She is Iran's daughter, Zhao Xueqing's." Nalanbo hesitated for a moment. Finally, he sighed and said with difficulty, It's that inauspicious girl. She's still alive." When he heard this, Jin Zishuan's expression changed greatly, and it changed indeterminately and successively. There was tenderness, regret, annoyance, and even hatred. Jin So-hyun and Nalan Iran were childhood sweethearts. They had a deep relationship and were betrothed to each other. Nalan Iran was supposed to marry Jin So-hyun. However, before Nalan Iran was married, she suddenly got pregnant. Moreover, she did not know whose child it was. Jin So-hyun was shocked and angry. He could not believe it. However, he loved Nalan Iran too much. He actually suggested that as long as Nalan Iran aborted the child, the marriage would proceed and he would treat it as if nothing had happened. To the Jin family, This was a great humiliation. It was unacceptable. At that time, the few elders of the Jin family were furious. They threatened to withdraw from the royal family and strongly opposed it. For such a woman, her death was not enough. She should be hacked into pieces and executed. Marrying a woman who had cheated on the crown prince and even had an abortion, he still wanted to marry her happily. Do you have any shame, Jin So-hyun? Where is the royal family's face? Whoever wants to withdraw from the royal family, get lost immediately. If you want to take away my position as crown prince, I can do that. But I must marry Nailaniran. Moreover, Jin So-hyun, will marry no one but her. However, Jin So-hyun stood his ground against everyone's opinions. Under the huge pressure, he stubbornly insisted on marrying no one but Nailaniran. Jin So-hyun's feelings for Nailaniran in many people's eyes could be said to be as low as dust. It was very touching. However, no one would have thought that Nailaniran was not willing to abort the child and was determined to keep it. She was very determined. She would rather be drowned in a pig cage and be hacked into pieces than to abort the child. After being forced into a corner by the Nailan family and Jin family, Nailaniran actually injured the guards and left without saying goodbye. From then on, no one saw her alive or her corpse. At that time, Jin So-hyun felt deeply humiliated. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. He could not recover from the setback. He spent his days indulging in sensual pleasures and indulged in women's charms. He would often get drunk and would not wake up for a few days and nights. He wished he could commit suicide. When Nailaniran appeared again, it was already 3 years later. Zhao Xueqing was already born and Nailaniran had married a secular man, Zhao Huqing. Of course, she and Zhao Huqing were only husband and wife in name but not in reality. She only wanted to find a father for Zhao Xueqing so that she could have a normal childhood life. For this, she even spent a large sum of money. But at this time, Nailaniran was already suffering from a serious illness. Moreover, her blood and qi had dried up. Chapter 977. Even if the Nailan family and Jin family searched for the best doctors and imperial physicians, they were still helpless. But the few doctors said that Nailaniran's pregnancy was very strange. She only gave birth to Zhao Xueqing after 2 years. Moreover, when she was pregnant with Zhao Xueqing, her blood and qi began to deteriorate. Her essence, qi, and spirit were rapidly draining away. It was already a great fortune for her to be able to survive until now. Nailaniran did not have long to live. However, Jin Zishuan could no longer hate her. There was only grief and endless pity in his heart. He took the initiative to take care of Nailaniran and sent her on her last journey. Jin So-hyun's cultivation was not bad. He stepped into the immortal realm at the age of 30. His eyesight was sharp and his sensing ability was amazing. At that time, he could see that even when Nailaniran was dying, Zhao Xueqing's body was still like a black hole, constantly absorbing Nailaniran's qi and blood, crazily devouring her life. In fact, not only did he notice it, Nailaniran also noticed it. And once Zhao Xueqing was far away from Nailaniran, Zhao Xueqing would have a high fever, blurred consciousness, and even a sudden drop in heartbeat and fainting. Knowing this, Nailaniran had no choice but to let Zhao Xueqing absorb her qi and blood. Therefore, in Jin Zishuan's eyes, the adorable Zhao Xueqing was like a devil who wanted to devour the heavens and earth. Jin So-hyun once wanted to kill Zhao Xueqing. As long as he killed Zhao Xueqing, maybe everything would be solved. Maybe Nailaniran could still be saved. But Nailaniran loved Zhao Xueqing very much and firmly did not allow Jin So-hyun to do so. She is not a devil. She is my daughter. She is a piece of flesh that fell from my body. Mother and daughter are connected by heart. How can I let her die? A mother's love was great. Nailaniran was very calm and did not have any complaints. She smiled and said, "If only one of the two can live, I choose her to live. She is the continuation of my life. All of this is the arrangement of fate. This is the arrangement of the gods. Brother Zishuan, if you love me, then promise me that you'll protect her for the rest of her life. Don't let anyone bully her." Otherwise, I'll die right now. In the face of the woman he loved the most, Jin So-hyun could only cry loudly and agree with tears in his eyes. Jin Zishuan defecated at the front of her bed and took care of her for 5 years. In the end, Nailaniran was like a lamp that had run out of oil. She exhausted her last bit of life force and passed away. It could be said that he watched with his own eyes as Nailaniran's vitality was completely devoured by Zhao Xueqing. It was easy to imagine the torment he had endured and the fury in his heart. Not only did Zhao Xueqing steal the daughter of his lover's enemy, but she also killed his lover's enemy. Therefore, Jin So-hyun's feelings towards Zhao Xueqing were very complicated. Even now, he was still a little angry. No matter what, she is Iran's child. Moreover, you promised to protect her for the rest of her life. Nalan Bo said sincerely. This? Jin So-hyun gritted his teeth and said coldly, "You're threatening me. Aren't you afraid that I'll cut off your head and destroy your Nalan family? Now, our royal family doesn't need you to suppress the dragon vein. This sinner dares not, but this is what you promised Iran." Nalan Bo quickly knelt down. His 3 sons also knelt down. Jin So-hyun was so angry that his liver was trembling. Originally, he wanted to kill Kang Tae-chu, but now he had become Kang Tae-chu's knife. I really owe your Nalan family. Jin So-hyun's mouth twitched. He closed his eyes and pondered for a long time. All right, I'll protect him. However, Kang Tae-chu has to know when to back down. He wants to sacrifice Sidoni and submit to the stellar sky domain together with our royal family. He wants to enslave this world and welcome the arrival of the immortals. This? I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. Nalan Bo hesitated and looked troubled. Although he had never met Jiang Tian, he had always been paying attention to Jiang Tian's every move. Furthermore, he had special information channels and understood Jiang Tian quite well. In his opinion, Jiang Tian had the temperament of an ambitious and ruthless person. He believed that he was the only one in the world. The way he did things his whole life was not inferior to others. He was like an ancient emperor. He had been arrogant his whole life. How could he be willing to be a dog of the stellar sky domain? Does Kang Tae-chu have any other choice now? Jin Zishuan slammed the table, and a ruler's pressure burst out. He said angrily, "From what I know, it's not just the stellar sky domain. Even the West Earth and the Heavenly Kingdom have contacted the Brahmin and the Holy See for them to control the Earth domain. I'm afraid they are going to make a move soon. This is the calm before the storm. A world-shaking war is about to break out. All the heroes are going to fight for the control of the entire Earth domain. Whoever succeeds will be the master of this blue planet. They will realize the great harmony of the world and unify it. If Kang Tae-chu doesn't submit to our reclusive royalty, he will only be torn into pieces by the Holy See, the Brahmin, and the dimensional world behind them. No matter what, the heavenly star small world is the legacy of our ancient Huaxia. Working for the heavenly star small world will not be a disgrace to him. It can be said that without the help of our Huaxia reclusive royalty, Kang Tae-chu is nothing. He will only be killed. Are you going to watch him be killed by the Holy See and the Brahmin? All right, this old man will discuss this with him." The more Nalan Bo listened, the more fearful he became. He had no choice but to agree. This matter needs to be dealt with quickly. Don't make me wait too long. Jin So-hyun stood up and said impatiently, "Now, the reclusive royalty is still relatively unified. I'm still the deputy chief of the Royal Alliance. My words still carry some weight. However, the stellar sky, Chiyi, and Kanglan domains are all very close to the Earth domain. The stellar sky domain is not the only one trying to control the Earth domain. The other 2 are also getting restless." He hurriedly walked out and glanced in the direction of the hall. He said indifferently, "I'm sorry. Chiyi and Kanglan domains might also look for reclusive royalty on Earth to be their representatives. When that happens, the reclusive royalty alliance will be broken. Heroes will rise and fight for themselves. It will be extremely chaotic. If it's me, it might be useless." "I understand." Nalan Bo hurriedly bowed and agreed. He accompanied him to see him off. Jin Zixuan left the courtyard and sat in the back of a BMW. A trace of seriousness appeared on his face as he said faintly, "State Preceptor, let's go to the Middle Sea and take a look at the Wu clan. We can't do anything to Kong Teichu now." The so-called national master was wearing a long robe and a mandarin jacket. His eyes were slightly drooping and his hair was white. He looked extremely old. His silver hair was woven into a translucent braid that hung behind his head. His shiny forehead was slightly bulging. Apparently, he was already an earth immortal. The nails on his 10 fingers were actually 10 centimeters long and curved into hooks. They were sharp and crystal clear. There was no dust or dirt on them, but they were filled with black gas like black gold. It was obvious that he had practiced some strange martial arts. If Situ Shao was here, he would probably be shocked. This was because he had lost to the last state preceptor in the late Qing dynasty. However, this person was very low-key. He was like a retired cadre who practiced Tai Chi in the park. Moreover, he had never appeared on any list of the most powerful people. There was no information about him in the database of any powerful intelligence agency. He was 10 times more mysterious than Situ Shao. The Wu family? The descendant of Empress Wu Zetian of the Tang dynasty? The last state preceptor of the Qing dynasty opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "Prince, you don't have to sell the face of the Nayland family for that old favor. Moreover, the favor of the Wu family is not that easy to repay. Sidoni is the best place to live. Kong Teichu is surrounded by enemies. We just need to wait for the Holy See and the Brahmin to kill Kong Teichu. Then we can go to Tianqing School in the name of driving away the Tartars and protecting the righteous path." State Preceptor, you want to take advantage of the situation. Jin Sohyun chuckled and said, "But I have to keep my promise to Iran. I can't bully a junior and make that devil girl sad. The Wu family and the reclusive royalty will give me face." Looking at Jin Sohyun who was leaving, Nayland Bo's face showed deep worry. "Father, what should we do? Should we persuade Jiang Tian to give Sidoni to them?" Nayland Li asked after Jin Sohyun's luxury car was far away. "We are the dragon protectors of the Qing dynasty. Of course, we have to be loyal to the emperor. However, Jiang Tian is also our family. We can't ignore family ties." Nayland Bo sighed with a sad face. "Besides, I have studied Jiang Tian's every battle. I always feel that he is not that simple. What kind of person can become a divine immortal before the age of 30? He is a genius. No matter how strong he is, he can't be compared to the divine immortals of the stellar sky domain, right?" At the side, the second son of the Nayland family, Nayland Yao, had a sinister look. He snorted and said with disdain, "This is the crown prince giving Kong Teichu another chance. To save him. Didn't the rumors say that he was seriously injured in the battle at the East Sea King's mansion? He was even a little jealous of Jiang Tian." He snorted and said, "A mere mortal ant representing this world for the divine immortals. He can stand shoulder to shoulder with the reclusive royalty. He even has the chance to ascend to the heavens and live in the star dimension. What a great opportunity! What a great favor and honor! Could it be that he can refuse?" At the side, the third son of the Nayland family, Nayland II, sneered, "Father, you're too kind. Xueqing, that damned girl, is a devil fetus. She is the one who caused Iran's death. At that time, it was also Iran who gave birth to a child before marriage. It caused us to lose face in the reclusive royalty and become a laughing stock. To her and her husband Jiang Tian, we don't have to care about feelings. If he is disobedient, we can just kill him." Chapter 978. What nonsense are you talking about? Nayland Bo was so angry that his whole body trembled. He said in a cold voice, coldly, "No matter what, Iran is your sister. The blood of the Nayland family also flows in Qinger's body. All these years, whether it was me or you, we didn't give Xueqing any help or love. We already owe her a lot. The two of them went through hardships to defeat Sidoni and establish the orthodoxy of Tianqing School. What does that have to do with us? When have we ever put in any effort? Why are you asking for it without any basis? Father, you're right. We know our mistakes. Father, please don't be angry. Nalan Li and his two brothers were frightened. They bowed and said yes. Do you really know your mistakes? Do you really understand? Nalan Bo glanced at the three of them and asked worriedly. This kind of reclusive big family kept their ancient style and paid attention to blood relations and seniority. But after all, they had entered the modern society. Many conservative ideas had been gradually disintegrated. Nalan Li and his two brothers were often unconvinced. They pretended to obey, but secretly disobeyed, and acted on their own. Father, we understand. Everything will be done according to your instructions. Nalan Li and his two brothers hurriedly expressed their opinions. We can only convey the advice of the Jin family's crown prince and let Jiang Tian understand the situation. But we can't have any bias. We will respect Jiang Tian and Qinger's decision. Nalan Bo's anger subsided. He softened his expression and tone and said slowly, he is now the master of Sidoni. He has many immortal state cultivators under his command. Sidu Shao and Yitaren both obey him. In terms of status, strength, and cultivation, you are far from him. A self-deprecating expression appeared on his face. This era doesn't belong to us anymore. Reclusive royalty? The Dragon Protector clan. It's just a bluff. But it definitely can't scare Jiang Tian. The three of them nodded in agreement, but they despised him in their hearts. How could Kang Teichu compare to the reclusive royalty, which had a noble bloodline? Nalan Bo frowned and shouted, let me remind you again, do not underestimate Jiang Tian. Don't use your seniority to oppress others. Don't think that the Dragon Guardian clan is so great. Don't be disrespectful to him. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it. Understood? He was also very conflicted about this matter. If he personally went to negotiate, once the negotiations collapsed, there would be no room for reconciliation. There would be no turning back. He would let Qinger's three uncles handle the negotiations. If Jiang Tian was dissatisfied, he, as the trump card, could still mediate. On Jiang Tian's side, he had already noticed Jin So-hyun's presence. Even their conversation did not escape his divine sense. Although they were wearing some magic weapons that could defend against the detection of spiritual power, and even set up a formation around them. However, Jiang Tian's divine sense had been sublimated to the extreme. Even spiritual treasures could not stop it, let alone these. He chatted with his grandmother and aunts for a while. Soon, night fell and the lanterns were lit. At this time, the three uncles walked into the hall together. Nalan Li glanced at Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing and smiled. Jiang Tian, Qinge, welcome. I just had some business meetings, so I was delayed for a moment. Don't blame me. Uncle, it's okay. Zhao Xueqing quickly got up and bowed. Jiang Tian planned to use peaceful means before resorting to force. He also followed suit and called him uncle. Qinge, don't get up. Don't disturb the baby. Is this Jiang Tian? As expected, it's extraordinary and full of wonders. Nalan Li smiled on the surface, but his vast spiritual power instantly enveloped Jiang Tian. This person did not have any fluctuation of genuine qi. Was it true that his cultivation had declined greatly as the rumors said? Jiang Tian, this is your first time coming to our house. Let's have a good drink. Nalan Yao seemed to be very enthusiastic about inviting him. Where's Qinge? Isn't she with us? Jiang Tian asked in surprise. Our family's rule is that women are not allowed at the table when men eat. Nalan Yao said with a fake smile. It's not because of these rules. Qinge is our family. There is no need to follow these rules. Nalan Li glared at him, then looked at Jiang Tian and explained with a smile, it's just that she is pregnant. We drink and smoke. It's not good for the baby's health. That's right. Qinge hasn't been here for a long time. The old lady misses her very much. She wants to have a good chat with her. First Aunt Li rose, she said with a smile. You guys can enjoy your drinks. We women will eat something light. All right, you go ahead. I want to have a good chat with Grandma, Zhao Xueqing said with a smile. All right, Jiang Tian knew that the three Nalan brothers wanted to talk to him about something. Moreover, it was inconvenient for Qing'er to be present. Therefore he agreed to it. As for them harming Qing'er, that was not to the extent of it. Moreover, he was here. Even if they were 100 miles away, they would not be able to harm Qing'er at all. It was already late. Jiang Tian and the rest immediately rushed to the banquet venue. Although the Nalan family kept a low profile, they were still the Dragon Protection Tribe. They had many businesses in Wuzhen, such as internet companies, film companies, hotels, restaurants, stores, travel agencies, and so on. This time, Nalan Li had chosen a private clubhouse near the river in Wuzhen for the banquet. There was a small bridge over flowing water. The buildings were simple and unadorned. The walls were white and the roof tiles were gray. Pavilions and terraces were hidden in a dense bamboo forest. They pushed the door open and entered. The furnishings were also very elegant. It was as if they had walked into a royal palace. The furniture and decorations were all antiques. The paintings and calligraphy on the walls were not fakes. They were priceless. On both sides of the door stood 2 rows of beautiful women dressed in palace attire. They were not waitresses at all. Instead, they looked more like the daughters of a wealthy family during the Republic of China. Amidst the greetings of welcome, the 4 of them sat down. A few young people had already arrived. They were Zhao Xueqing's cousins. They seemed to be doing well. They were all dressed like business elites. Compared to their parents, they were much more modern. They had already integrated into the secular life and were almost all transcendent state cultivators. Among them, Nalan Li's son and daughter were the most outstanding. Nalan Juantu was tall and handsome. He was only in his early 20s and had already reached the peak of the transcendent state. Naran Qinghe was also in her early 20s. She was in charge of an internet company owned by her family. Not only was she beautiful, but she had also reached the transcendent state. There were a few transcendent state cultivators and even 2 half-step immortal state cultivators in her family. There might even be more powerful consecrators. This level of power was far beyond that of the Qinzhong martial arts families in Yanjin. The banquet started off well. Nalan Li recommended the local specialties and insisted on having a few drinks with Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian didn't mind. He didn't refuse and drank the wine. At the side, Nalan Qinghe watched with cold eyes, her heart filled with complex feelings. If it wasn't for her family's powerful intelligence network, she wouldn't even dare to believe that the Jiang Tian in front of her was the most powerful person on earth, the retired emperor of Sidoni, the sect master of the Tianqing sect. This was because Jiang Tian was always lukewarm when it came to people and matters. He didn't look like a superior, but more like a reclusive scholar who hid his pride, didn't care about worldly affairs, and was calm and indifferent. Sigh, Qing'er is so lucky. She's just a bastard, but she has such a powerful husband. Nalan Qinghe's heart was sour. She was a little envious, but also a little jealous and unwilling. Although Nalan Bo and his wife loved Qing'er, in the eyes of Nalan Li and Naran Qinghe, Qing'er was the shame of the Nalan family. She had a child before marriage and caused a big fuss. She ran away from home and married an ordinary man and gave birth to this bastard. Zhao Xueqing was even worse in their eyes. She was a bastard with an unknown background and was extremely ominous. She had killed her own mother. However, such an ordinary and even ominous girl had won the favor of Jiang Tian. She had become the wife of the #1 person in the world, the mother of a country, the supreme beauty. To actually be able to enjoy a myriad of glory and live a life of luxury and luxury. I'm afraid that when the First Lady sees her, she has to be courteous and treat her with respect. This made Naran Qinghe, who had always thought highly of herself and looked down on Zhao Xueqing, feel very uncomfortable. After 3 rounds of drinking, Nalan Li and Jiang Tian couldn't hold back anymore. He was now the enemy of the whole world and was in danger. He must have come to the Nalan family to seek help. But why didn't he speak? He only drank and talked about family matters. Could it be that he still wanted to maintain his attitude at this moment? In the end, Nalan too couldn't sit still. He smiled faintly and asked meaningfully, "Jiangtan?" Should I call you Kong Taechu or Jiang Tian? This clearly showed that the Nayland family already knew about your background. You have nothing to hide. Come, third uncle, drink. I'm Kong Taechu outside, but we're close relatives. My identity and status are not important. Just call me by my name. Jiang Tian proposed a toast. Nayland Tu's face changed slightly. He sipped a glass of wine and then asked calmly, Jiang Tian, you came to the Nayland family for something, right? As soon as these words came out, the whole room became silent. Everyone's eyes fell on Jiang Tian. A hint of ridicule appeared at the corner of their mouth. They wanted to see how Jiang Tian would plead. Nayland Juanta picked up the teacup and sipped the tea, hiding the ridicule and pride in his eyes. So what if Kong Taechu is powerful? Don't you know that the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind? You have offended many strong people in the world. Now you have to bow to the Nayland family and ask for help. Jiang Tian drank the wine in the cup and smiled faintly. Of course, there's something. The tomb sweeping day is coming. We're here to pay tribute to Chinger's birth mother. In addition, I'd like to ask uncles and grandparents to bury Chinger's birth mother's ashes in the family cemetery and return the memorial tablet to the family ancestral hall. That's it? Nayland Lee and the other two looked at each other with a bit of astonishment. Nayland Juan and the other young people were also quite surprised. Shouldn't you ask the Nayland family and the reclusive royalty to help you? Their original plan was that if Jiang Tian asked for help, they would take advantage of Jin Sohyun's request and force Jiang Tian to give up Sidoni as a base to welcome the arrival of the immortals from the heavenly star small world. But now, Nayland Lee and the other two brothers were a bit confused and didn't know what to say for a while. Chapter 979. In the end, it was Nayland Tu who smiled and said, Kong Taechu, now that you control a country and a religion, you should have a lot of enemies and opponents, right? Do you have any difficulties? My Nayland clan can lend you a helping hand. Jiang Tian smiled and said nothing. At this time, Nayland Bo coughed lightly. A faintly discernible arrogance emerged from the corners of his eyes and brows. Jiang Tian, you may not know, but my Nayland family is the Dragon Protector clan of the Qing dynasty. My ancestors were all important ministers of the former Qing dynasty and have a close relationship with the Jin family of reclusive royalty. I see. Sorry for the disrespect. Jiang Tian was not surprised at all. He said politely and then smiled, but there's really nothing I can't handle. Everyone from the Nayland family was dumbstruck. Their faces were filled with surprise and disbelief. At this time, Nayland Qinghe frowned and smiled. She rolled her eyes at Jiang Tian and said, Cousin-in-law, don't you know that the Holy See and the Brahmin have announced that they're going to attack you? Don't you know how powerful these forces are? The two most ancient orthodoxies on earth. Of course I know. Jiang Tian was calm and composed as he said calmly, but in my opinion, the Holy See and the Brahmin are too young and too weak. They can't withstand a single blow. The whole place was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was in a daze. Jiang Tian was so tired that they were crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Only a pinch of cumin was missing. Suddenly, there was It was Nayland Qinghe who laughed out loud. She even spat out the tea in her mouth. She felt her father's dignified gaze sweep over her and said, I'm sorry, repeatedly. She held her forehead with her hand and lowered her head to hide her crazy laughter. The Holy See has a history of nearly 2,000 years, and the Brahmins' history can be traced back to before the Christian era. You said that they're too young and too weak. Kong Taechu is really arrogant. Is this the so-called fearless ignorance? If they hadn't received conclusive information, they wouldn't have believed that Jiang Tian was Kong Taechu. At this moment, Nayland Lee smiled warmly and said, Jiang Tian, although we didn't interact much in the past, Qing is our close relative no matter what. We are still willing to lend a helping hand. Because we're family, I don't want you to put yourselves in danger. I can handle this. Jiang Tian turned his wine glass and smiled faintly. The Brahmin and Holy See are not worthy of my full strength. Why do I need to trouble eldest uncle? Jiangtan, you're still too rash. At this time, Nayland Jun said, the power of the Brahman and Holy See is not something you can imagine. I know that you claim to be a celestial immortal with great strength, but the other side also has holy masters, and more than one. Moreover, there's reclusive royalty in Europe. Maybe they'll take the opportunity to attack. Your current situation is very dangerous. Oh. Jiang Tian nodded, then picked up a glass of wine and said, I know, but I'm confident in dealing with it, so you don't have to worry. Let's drink. Jiang Tian, as the saying goes, a single piece of silk can't make a thread, and a single tree can't make a forest. In the face of the Earth invasion, we, the strong in Huaxia, should be united and overcome the difficulties together. You can't do it alone. Uncle Nailan Li said earnestly, Jiang Tian, I know that your cultivation has been greatly affected after the battle with Yi Tianren. You're no longer at your peak state, and I'm afraid you can't exert 100% of your combat strength. Next to him, second uncle and third uncle shook their heads and chuckled. Big brother was too polite. If he was not at his peak state, Jiang Tian might have lost all his cultivation. Otherwise, why didn't he have the slightest aura fluctuation? Once the great magic that damaged one's lifespan was used, it would be impossible to recover without 8 to 10 years of hard work. It was even possible that he would not be able to reach his peak state for the rest of his life, and his cultivation would be shackled forever. Reclusive royalty, the head of the Jin family, Jin Sohyun, has heard about your matter. Nailan Li said unhurriedly, this person's cultivation is earth-shattering. He's the crown prince of the Jin family. He's quite influential in the reclusive royalty, and he's the vice president of the Royal Alliance. He's quite related to our Nailan family, and he's as close as brothers with Qinger's birth mother, Iran. He's willing to lead Huaxia's reclusive royalty to help you. At this point, Nailan Li straightened his back and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he was waiting for him to thank him profusely. Jin So-hyun is willing to help me? Jiang Tian turned his teacup and chuckled without batting an eyelid. There's no free lunch in the world. I'm afraid the Jin family will have some requirements and conditions, right? Tianqing School has been turned into a holy land for cultivation by you, but it's still very empty inside. There are too few experts. The corners of Nailan Li's mouth curled into a smile. He deliberated over his words, organized his words, and tactfully said, the Jin family and a lot of reclusive royalty are willing to enter Tianqing School and enrich the strength of Tianqing School. At that time, Tianqing School will have the 9 reclusive royalty of Huaxia and many experts from the Dragon Protection Clan. There will be hundreds of immortal state experts, as well as human immortals and earth immortals. There will even be many celestial immortals. How glorious and powerful will it be? It'll be the first unparalleled sect since ancient times. Well, that's a good idea. Tianqing School is also in need of talents. Although I, Kong Teichu, dare not say that I'm all-inclusive, at least I'm somewhat tolerant. Jiang Tian said with a faint smile, but who will be the leader of Tianqing School in the future? Who will take orders from whom? In fact, Jiang Tian had already found out their plans, but Jiang Tian cared about Qingya and didn't want to put her in a difficult position. Therefore, he didn't want to fall out with them and didn't give them a chance to speak. However, the few of them coveted the Tianqing sect, this fat piece of meat, and refused to give up on their evil intentions, chasing after Jiang Tian relentlessly. Did they think that Jiang Tian was a 3-year-old child? Reclusive royalty of Jin So-hyun and the Dragon Protection Clan, once they entered Tianqing School, would be like Chao Gai, Wu Yong, and Song Jiang when they fought with Wang Luan on Lake Liangshan. At this time, Nailan Li's face was not so good, but he still said, Jiang Tian, do you know that there are many dimensional worlds around the Earth? Yes, I know. Jiang Tian nodded. You know, then it's easy to say. Nailan Li cheered up and said with a smile, the dimensional worlds are the dimensional worlds. Legend has it that the spiritual chi condenses into raindrops, the medicine is like a sea, and the immortals fly in the sky and the earth, plucking the stars and the moon. Even the ancient heavenly court is in the ruins of immortality. Reclusive royalty is related to all the dimensional worlds. Reclusive royalty occupying Sidoni is not for the private interests of the royal family, but to welcome the arrival of the immortals in the small worlds. When the time comes, we will help the immortals occupy this world, and we will be meritorious officials. If the immortals are happy, we will have the opportunity to ascend to the sky, enter the dimensional immortal realm, and become immortals. Naelinli thought that his temptation was irresistible to any cultivator. For thousands of years, many cultivators on Earth had been diligently seeking and experiencing difficulties and dangers. Wasn't it to become a higher level of life? Wasn't it to become immortal? Wasn't it to become a god? Now, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was in front of you. How could you resist the temptation, Kong Taechu? How could you refuse? To be a slave to the experts in the ruins of immortality? That sounds very tempting. Jiang Tian's face gradually darkened. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, and he joked. Although I, Kong Taechu, am not very strong, at least I have a strong backbone. Unfortunately, I don't know how to bend, kneel, and kowtow. I'm also not good at being a slave. You! How can you say that? As soon as he said that, everyone was furious. Naelinli was so angry that his whole body was trembling crazily. It could be said that Jiang Tian had poked their sore spot. Reclusive royalty and the dragon protection lineage all treated the experts in the ruins of immortality and the dimensional worlds as godlike existences. It was as if they were suffering from osteochondrosis, humbling themselves and daring to be slaves. Jiang Tian, you don't know how powerful the stellar sky domain and the dimensional worlds are. You are too ignorant. Naelinli was so angry that he slammed the table and shouted angrily. He had always been well-mannered, but at this moment he couldn't stand it. Jiang Tian's words were too harsh. Even if it was the truth, you couldn't say it out loud. Wouldn't that be a slap in the face? Jiang Tian smiled lazily and was too lazy to refute. Jiang Tian stood up and scolded, Jiang Dun, the elders are talking to you. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at all of you. You don't even know my strength, and yet you want to encroach on my Tianqing school's training ground. Jiang Tian smiled sarcastically. You want me to be obedient to the stellar sky domain, and you want me to seek protection from the reclusive royalty. Even if Jin So-hyun sees me, even if the stellar sky palace master, even if the supreme giant of the stellar sky domain sees me, they will have to kneel and kowtow. If you want to ascend to the heavenly star small world, ask Jin So-hyun and those descendants to kneel and kowtow to me, Kong Taechu. After he finished speaking, Jiang Tian stood up, flicked his sleeves, and left. He said coldly, don't mention what happened tonight and don't tell Qing. It will make her sad and troubled. Otherwise, don't blame me, Kong Taechu, for being ruthless. The next time we meet, we won't recognize you as our relatives. In addition, tomorrow we will go to pay respects to Qinger's birth mother. You guys prepare the ceremony and welcome her ashes into the ancestral hall. Naelinli was so angry that his face turned green. He trembled all over and couldn't believe it. Suddenly, he slammed the table and shouted angrily, Jiang Tun, stop right there. Chapter 980. Oh, Naelin family leader, what other advice do you have for me? Jiang Tian stopped in his tracks, turned his head around and said calmly, you should know that we have a big secret that we have been hiding from Qingya. Naelinli said coldly, Qinger's father is not Zhao Huqing. We still don't know who her father is. Iran was originally engaged to Jin So-hyun, but she gave birth to a child before marriage and embarrassed the Naelin family. According to the family rules, her bones are not allowed to enter the ancestral hall. At this time, Jiang Tian's face was still calm, because he had already discovered this. In fact, Zhao Xueqing is the main culprit who killed her mother. She is the evil seed of misfortune. When she was in her mother's womb, she was crazily absorbing Iran's qi and blood. When Zhao Xueqing was born, Iran was already wrinkled. A 20-year-old woman looked like she was in her 70s or 80s. Jiang Tian's heart suddenly sank. His face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. His hands were trembling crazily. It seemed that his previous guess about the immortal body of the pure phoenix was right. This kind of body began to deprive the mother of all her qi and blood when she was in her mother's womb. Qing'er and the baby in her womb were bound to compete for Qing'er's lifespan and qi and blood. Of the two, it was likely that only one would survive. Seeing Jiang Tian's face change, Nalanli could not help but feel proud. He smiled and said, even after she was born, she was still crazily absorbing Iran's qi and blood. Once she stopped, Qing'er would fall ill, have a high fever, and faint. It can be said that Qing'er exhausted her mother Iran to death. Like a vampire. Kong Teichu, do you think that if Qing'er knew the truth, her biological father would be someone else? She wouldn't know who her biological father was, and he never acknowledged her. He abandoned her like a worn-out shoe and didn't care about her at all. Her adoptive father only treated her as a tool to make money. She even caused the death of her own biological mother. How do you think she feels? A hint of panic flashed through Jiang Tian's eyes. Ever since his rebirth, Jiang Tian had slaughtered his way across the land, staining 100 miles with blood. He had trampled over the giants and suppressed large countries. He had never felt a moment of panic or nervousness. It was as if nothing in the world could move Jiang Tian in the slightest. But at this moment he was flustered. No one could become an isolated island. Kinship, family, friendship, love, and various social relationships were the foundation of a person's life in this world. If Zhao Xueqing knew about this, it would be the most heartless and cruel blow to her. This was simply turning the world upside down, and it was no different from a calamity of annihilation. Also, she's pregnant. Nalanli sneered. What if she was also pregnant with a demon seed? What would she do? Was it because of the cycle of justice and retribution that she accepted her fate? Or was it because she wanted to protect herself that she cruelly aborted the fetus? No matter what, it would be a tragedy. What do you mean? Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly turned cold as he looked at Nalanli coldly. There's another possibility. Nalanli did not answer directly. Instead, he squinted his eyes and said slowly, Zhao Xueqing might not even belong to this world. She might not even be Iran's daughter, because Iran insisted that she had never had sex with any man before. She was pregnant with Zhao Xueqing for no reason. After the test, it was indeed so. She was a virgin. Until death, she was still a virgin. It's incredible, isn't it? It's simply an ancient story. But all of this is true. We even kept the original test report. So, strictly speaking, Zhao Xueqing was a demon born out of thin air without parents. Tell me, if she knew, how would she feel? Jiang Tian's eyes were dull, and his hands trembled violently. He thought of a possibility. A terrifying possibility. Let me ask you, what do you mean? Jiang Tian's eyes gradually gathered a sharp light as he stared at Nalanli and asked coldly. You still ask us what we mean? Are you, Kong Teichu, an idiot? Nalan too stood up, his face full of disdain. He came to Jiang Tian's side and sneered. Obediently give up the Tianqing school's training hall and submit to the reclusive royalty. Otherwise, we'll disclose this secret. We'll let Zhao Xueqing fall into hell and suffer spiritual torment. She'd rather die than live. Jiang Tian was slightly stunned, then tried to suppress his anger and said coldly, I've been to the heavenly star small world, and I've already conquered it. And I'm confident that I can defeat the ruins of immortality. Jiang Tian's voice was powerful, and his words were like thunder. At that time, if you want power, I'll give you a country, a city, and beautiful mountains and rivers. If you want wealth, I'll give you mountains of gold and silver, and you'll enjoy glory, splendor, and wealth for generations to come. If you want cultivation, I'll help you advance 1,000 miles in a day, and you'll become immortals and saints, and live forever. I only ask one thing. Yes, I'm begging you to help me keep this secret forever, forever. Jiang Tian had never been weaker than anyone. But now, in order to protect Qing'er, he had to bow his head. At this moment, his voice became sincere as he said with emotion, You're right. Qing'er has suffered too much pain and hurt. I once swore that in this life, I won't let her suffer any harm. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other in shock and then looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a madman. You conquered the stellar sky domain? What are you bragging about? I heard that there are thousands of heaven immortals there. How many nails can you crush if you're made of iron? Nailin Jun looked at Jiang Tian as if he was looking at a fool and said mockingly, Cousin-in-law, I know that your cultivation is strong, and you're not weaker than Hua Xia's reclusive royalty, but that's the stellar sky domain. Cousin-in-law, you can brag, but you have to be logical. Naren Qinghe covered her mouth and chuckled. In their hearts, the immortals of the stellar sky domain were unshakable, and the human race on Earth was like weak ants. That was a completely different level of life, and the difference between the strong and the weak was like heaven and earth. Jiang Tian's words, to them, were like a 3-year-old child in the neighbor's house saying that he killed Tyson with one punch. They could only explain it as a bluff. Jiang Tian suddenly had an idea. He took out the Human Emperor's token and said slowly, This is called the Human Emperor's token, and it is a token that is respected by all the multidimensional worlds. It was given to me by the stellar sky domain's Yuan Zihua. Whoever has the Human Emperor's token can command Hua Xia's reclusive royalty. Now, do you believe me? Jiang Tian, you can fool a 3-year-old child with a piece of scrap metal, but you can't scare us. Unexpectedly, Nailin Jun smiled disdainfully and said, There is no room for negotiation. Kneel down and surrender. Everyone, do you have to fall out with me? Nailin Li, do you have the same opinion? Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd coldly and finally looked at Nailin Li's face. Nailin Li sat there motionlessly, as steady as Mount Tai. There was a faint smile on his face, and there was a hint of mockery, disdain, and coldness. Jiang Tian, our attitude is firm and clear. Nailin too looked down at Jiang Tian as if he was looking at an ant. He said arrogantly, Isn't it good to cooperate with the reclusive royalty and the Dragon Protection Clan? You have lost all your cultivation now, and you are like a piece of trash. Do you still have the strength to resist? Cooperate with us. This is your only way out. Otherwise, you can only die in the hands of the Brahmin and the Holy See, in the hands of Saint Ogu, and leave behind Zhao Xueqing as a widow and an orphan. Moreover, we will not be polite and will definitely expose everything. Zhao Xueqing will also live in pain and suffering. Jiang Tian suddenly moved and slapped Nailin Tu's face. Nailin Tu let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying by Jiang Tian. He heavily crashed into the wall, spitting out blood as he slowly slid down to the ground. Kang Teichu, aren't you afraid that we will? Nailin Li was shocked and pointed at Jiang Tian angrily. The others were also stunned. It seemed that although Jiang Tian's cultivation had decreased greatly, at least he could defeat a transcendent state cultivator. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. He was definitely not someone the Nailin family could afford to offend. I have a small art that can erase people's memories, but it will make them stupid. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and emotionless. He walked over slowly and said lightly, This divine power is against the laws of nature, so I usually don't use it. But this time, you have forced me to do it. In order to protect Zhao Xueqing, so what? When did Zhao Xueqing owe the Nailin family anything? When did I, Kang Teichu, ever offend you? Why did you disregard family ties and force me to do it? Just depriving them of their memories was already a great mercy. Jiang Tian didn't kill them because he didn't want to hurt Qing'er who didn't know the truth. What did you say? Erasing memories? This divine power is against the laws of nature. It only exists in legends. Jiang Tian sneered and looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. Don't brag. Kneel down and admit your mistake and surrender to the Nailin family. You don't believe me? Then I will start with you. A cold light flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes as he activated the Soul Eater. With a chi sound, a black gelatinous tentacle extended out from Jiang Tian's forehead. Jiang Tian, you have no respect for your elders and family ties. Do you still want to kill me? Go to hell. Nailin Li shouted and led several family members to attack Jiang Tian at the same time. Nailin Li patted the back of his head and an umbrella-shaped magic tool was spat out from his mouth. This umbrella-shaped magic tool became bigger in the wind and spun around. Blood chi gushed out and grabbed at Jiang Tian. Flying guillotine. If the knowledgeable Huaxia overlords were here, they would definitely exclaim in shock and be dumbfounded. This magic tool was the famous hidden weapon in history, the flying guillotine. In the Middle Ages of Huaxia, it was as famous as the Pearflower Storm needles and the hidden weapons of the Tang sect in Shu. It had been hidden in the world for hundreds of years and only appeared today. Chapter 981. It was said that the flying guillotine was developed by the refining masters of the Qing dynasty and the Western missionaries under the leadership of Yongjing. It was the master of the combination of Huaxia's refining techniques and the mechanical structure of the West. There was a magic weapon that interfered with people's minds. Once it broke out, it would make people dizzy and have no resistance. There were gears, rotating knives, and chainsaws inside. When it grabbed people's heads, the gears, rotating knives, and chainsaws rotated together, instantly cutting off the neck and crushing the head. The rest of the people also showed their unique skills. Some condensed chi into wind blades, some shot hidden weapons, and some waved soft swords. They came at Jiang Tian from all directions. "Get out!" Jiang Tian shouted. Suddenly, with Jiang Tian as the center, it was like a nuclear explosion. The violent power, like the surging seventh metal true essence, swept out like golden waves and pushed in all directions. The seventh metal true essence flashed with golden light. The black water true essence was like stormy waves. The green wood true essence condensed into branches of a dancing tree, surrounded by purple thunder and lightning, and burst out toward everything around. The solid wooden floor of the room crumbled, and huge cracks appeared, spreading out like a spider web. It was a ghastly sight. The tables and chairs were torn into wooden fibers in an instant by the violent power turbulence. Many decorations and porcelain were all turned into powder, and the fragments of calligraphy and painting flew like catkins. The surrounding walls burst open with a big hole, and half of the box was blown up. The window lattice and glass were turned into fragments and flew out. Clang. After a slight pause, cracks appeared on the flying guillotine, and then it burst open and the fragments flew out. Then, Nayland Li and others were like ragged dolls, flying out powerlessly, spitting blood and ragged clothes. Although it was not fatal, they were seriously injured and lost their combat effectiveness. What? He has not lost his cultivation. He is definitely beyond the divine realm. Maybe he is an earth immortal. They lay on the ground and exclaimed with pale faces, looking at Jiang Tian in shock. And Jiang Tian's soul devourer was like a black python at this time, drilling into Nayland Jun's mind. Nayland Jun's eyes rolled back violently, and his entire body trembled like a sieve. Blood spurted out from his 7 apertures, and then his body went limp and fainted on the ground. "Brother!" Narenqinghe's beautiful face turned pale as she cried out in alarm. She held him in her arms and felt his chest. Feeling his heartbeat, she hurriedly injected some true qi into his body and pinched his philtrum as hard as she could. Cough, cough, cough. A moment later, Nayland Jun woke up. With saliva hanging from the corner of his mouth, he reached out to touch Narenqinghe's chest. He smiled foolishly and said, "Hey beauty, are you free tonight?" Narenqinghe was so scared that her face turned pale. She screamed and pushed him aside. As if they were avoiding snakes and scorpions, they shrank behind the crowd. Everyone was shocked. Nayland Li couldn't believe it. He roared, "Nayland Jun, what the hell are you doing? What a disgrace! Who do you think you are? How dare you yell at me?" Nayland Jun didn't know him at all and retorted, "Nayland Jun, I'm your father, and this is your sister. What do you want to do?" Nayland Li was so angry that his whole body trembled. "Sister? Do I have such a beautiful sister? Puma, is my name Nayland Jun? Why can't I remember?" Nayland Jun painfully pulled his hair. His originally clear eyes became chaotic and confused. Everyone's heart trembled. Their faces changed wildly as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They felt cold from head to toe. Jiang Tian really deleted Nayland Jun's memory. He didn't even recognize his father and sister now. At this time, Everyone's heart was in a panic. They felt a sense of powerlessness in their hearts. Jiang Tian didn't lose his cultivation. Killing them was as easy as killing chickens. Of course, it could be seen that Jiang Tian had deep feelings for Qingya. In order not to open the lid, Jiang Tian might not kill. But at least Jiang Tian could delete their memories. He could turn them into idiots that even their own parents couldn't recognize. They didn't know what kind of beastly things they would do. This was too heaven-defying, too evil, and too terrifying. Jiang Tian, I admit that I underestimated you. I didn't expect that not only did you not lose your cultivation, but you also have such an evil magical power. Among the people present, only Nalan Li was still able to keep calm. However, his slightly trembling hands still revealed that he was strong in appearance but weak in reality. Even if he was the family head of the Dragon Protection Tribe, after all, he had been living in seclusion for many years. The fighting and killing that he had participated in could not be compared with his father's generation. He had not experienced much danger in the martial arts world and could be regarded as a flower that grew up in a greenhouse. At this time, he was almost scared to death by Jiang Tian. However, Nalan Li still resisted the fear and sneered. But do you know how many people know the truth? I've backed up a lot of information and distributed it to 12 spies to control. As long as you don't surrender to us, they will release the information when the time comes. At this time, he threw out his trump card and shouted loudly, "Can you kill all the insiders? You can't stop us." Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, "That's right. There's one thing that I don't seem to have made clear to you. The strength of my spiritual power is not something you can imagine. I can delete your memories and even control your thoughts." Jiang Tian's soul-devouring moved. Suddenly, a black soul-devouring demon erupted, faintly showing Jiang Tian's face. With a flash of black light, it rushed into Nalan Jun's mind. Nalan Jun's body trembled, then he glanced at the crowd disdainfully and sneered. "Now, I am Jiang Tian's spokesperson. Everyone, if anyone is not convinced and dares to provoke me, stand out." Soul consciousness and all kinds of psychic power cultivation methods were illusory and mysterious, which made them extremely difficult to cultivate. Even the simplest soul-searching was a lost art for ordinary cultivators. Even those unparalleled sects and ancient sacred grounds in the cultivation world might not have these magical powers. But deleting memories was even more effective. As for using divine sense to control other people's thoughts, speech, and behavior, it was more than possession. It was against the heavens and was a secret. But to the current Jiang Tian, it was as easy as moving his fingers. It was simple and casual. Seeing this, everyone was stunned as if they were struck by lightning. Their mouths were wide open and they even forgot to breathe. Nalan Jun had become Jiang Tian's puppet. Like a marionette, his every move was controlled by Jiang Tian. Cough, cough, cough. At this time, in the silence, Nalan too suddenly coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and woke up. He glanced at the mess, got up, and shouted angrily, "Nalan Jun, how can you betray the family? Why aren't you arresting this bastard who has no respect for his elders and is randomly beating people up? Chop off his hands." Jiang Tian sneered cruelly. His eyes were cold and merciless. "Yes, master." Nalan Jun smiled at Jiang Tian with a flattering face. Suddenly, he burst out and used a capturing technique that the Nalan family did not know and grabbed Nalan Tuesday. Then, in the panicked shouts of the crowd and Nalan Tu's helpless screams, his hand rose and the knife fell. Both hands fell to the ground. Nalan Tu rolled on the ground. Blood spurted out from the white bones of his broken arm like a fountain, leaving a glaring scarlet on the ground. In the blink of an eye, he fainted from the pain. Jiang Tian threw out a bottle of healing medicine and used his divine sense. "Master, don't worry." Nalan Jun said humbly and immediately went forward to help Nalan Tu bandage and fix his broken arm. He applied the medicine powder and quickly stopped the bleeding. His technique was very skillful. Jiang Tian did not want to kill anyone. After all, if he really killed Nalan Tu, the lid would inevitably be opened. If it were not for Qingya, he could kill the Nalan family easily. But how could he explain it to Qingya? He was afraid that the mystery of her origin would be exposed. The whole place was dead silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone was frozen on the spot like clay sculptures, motionless. They looked at Jiang Tian in horror as if they had seen a devil. The Dragon Protector clan was a big force with a deep foundation. Moreover, they thought that they had grasped Jiang Tian's weakness. Their plan was meticulous and watertight. But now they sadly found out that, in the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were nothing more than trash. As long as I want to, I can control all of your thoughts. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and ruthless. He sneered. Nailin Li, your so-called hidden spies, I'm afraid that they have to listen to your orders to release relevant information. What if I'm ruthless enough to turn all of you into my puppets? Will this secret be kept forever? Everyone was in a daze. If Jiang Tian really did that, they would have no way to stop him. Suddenly, Jiang Tian's eyes fell on Narenqinghe. The corner of his mouth outlined an evil arc. He sneered. For example, I can control your consciousness and make you stand on the street, the cheapest kind. I think that the pleasure seekers of today are probably very interested in the so-called descendants of the imperial dynasties, the daughters of the pearls and pearls of gold like you. Your business must be very good. Jiang Tian, no, Immortal Master Jiang. Oh no. My Nailin family, we admit defeat. Narenqinghe was so scared that her face turned pale. Her whole body trembled like a sieve. She knelt down and kowtowed to Jiang Tian again and again. Then she screamed at Nailin Li, Dad, you should admit defeat. Dad, just admit defeat. Do you really want your daughter to become a promiscuous woman? The whole place was dead silent again. Everyone's face was pale, and they were trembling. They kept quiet and looked at Nailin Li, the family master, and waited for his decision. Chapter 982. Forget it. Forget it. In an instant, Nailin Li's face flashed with many complicated expressions. Shock, anger, unwillingness, confusion, but in the end, they all turned into endless fear. He bent his back and looked as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. He sighed deeply and bowed. Indeed, the Nailin family underestimated you, Kong Teichu. It was I, Nailin Li, who was blind and didn't recognize you. The Nailin family admits defeat and listens to Immortal Master Jiang's orders. Please, for the sake of Qinghe, let us go. The other Nailin family members, including second uncle and other elders, were all trembling. They never thought that Jiang Tian's divine power would be so heaven-defying. A negotiation that was supposed to be a victory was turned around by Jiang Tian and ended in such a way. As long as you don't hurt Qinghe, I won't hold it against you. Jiang Tian said in a low voice. I think you will give Qinghe a proper explanation for what happened today. Don't worry, this old man has his own decisions and will never reveal anything. Nailin Li smiled bitterly and promised. Prepare for the Qingming festival. Also, tell Jin Sohyun that I won't hold it against him for the sake of Qinghe's mother. But please respect himself and don't try to provoke me. What hidden royal family? In my eyes, they're just ants. Jiang Tian coldly snorted, flicked his sleeves, and left. Just like that, the gathering ended in a hurry. Jiang Tian returned to the hidden dragon dock. Qinghe was pregnant and very sleepy, so she went to bed early. Jiang Tian, there are strong enemies outside. You came back with me to pay respects to my mother. Aren't you holding up the important matters? Seeing that Jiang Tian had returned, Zhao Xueqin got up and held Jiang Tian's hand and said apologetically. It's okay. No matter how small your matter is, it's still a big matter. Jiang Tian held her sweaty little hand and smiled. Uncle has already agreed to move your mother's ashes to the ancestral hall on the Qingming festival. Will they agree? Zhao Xueqin couldn't believe it. After all, she had said this a few times, but the Nailin family's attitude was still very firm. Qinghe, don't worry. Of course. Suddenly, Nailin Li knocked on the door and walked in with Li Roshi and Narenqinghe with a complicated expression. Qinghe, you and Jiang Tian's achievements are the glory of our Iran and also the glory of our Nailin family. We've long wanted to move Iran's ashes back. Thank you, uncle. Chinga wanted to get up and thank him. Chinga, don't get up. You're pregnant now, it's better not to move too much. Li Ro, she said with a face full of joy. Chinga, how are you feeling? You ate too little at night. I've already asked the servants to make ginseng soup. It'll be here soon. Naran Chingha also pinched the quilt and said exaggeratedly, Cousin Chinga, this quilt is too thin. It'll be bad if you catch a cold at night. I'll quickly change a new set for you. Cousin, no need. I'm not cold. Zhao Xueqing felt that their enthusiasm was a bit too much. When she saw Jiang Tian, she was a bit frightened. She looked at Jiang Tian suspiciously. Li Ro, she helped Zhao Xueqing up. Naran Chingha quickly made the bed and said enthusiastically, Sister Chinga, those servants are always careless. What do you want to eat or drink? Tell me, I'll make it for you. I'll also let Sister taste my cooking. Zhao Xueqing was flattered and thanked her repeatedly. This cousin of hers has always thought highly of herself since she was a child. She was always harsh with her words and even often insulted her. Why is she so warm and considerate now? Jiang Tian looked at them and smiled without saying a word. Nalan Li still has some ability. His son's soul was injured and Nalan Tu's arms were cut off. These are big things. But he was able to cut the Gordian knot and suppress it. He even brought his daughter and wife to express his attitude. Alright, Chinga is tired. It's time to rest. Jiang Tian coughed. Hearing this, the three of them said goodbye. Chinga wanted to send them off, but they didn't let her. I don't know why Grandpa and Grandma didn't let Mother's ashes return to the ancestral hall. After the three of them left, Zhao Xueqing went to bed again and said gratefully, but no matter what, this can be considered as fulfilling Mother's long-cherished wish. Hubby, thank you. Thank you, why are you thanking me? I didn't do anything. Jiang Tian said with a smile. When I was young, although I wasn't very sensible, I could feel that although my grandparents loved me, my uncles, aunts, and cousins didn't like me very much. Zhao Xueqing said with a smile. Previously, I mentioned that I wanted to send Mother home, but my uncles didn't agree. They even looked very angry. But this time, when you asked, they immediately agreed. All of this is because of your achievements today. A mother is valued by her daughter, and a mother is respected by her son-in-law. They don't dare to look down on my mother anymore. I feel that your grandfather's family is quite kind. Maybe that's just your imagination. Jiang Tian smiled and comforted her. All right, don't think too much. You're going to sleep and the baby is going to sleep too. I'm going to talk to Grandpa about something. Jiangtan, wait until I fall asleep before you leave, okay? Chinga looked at Jiang Tian longingly and said coquettishly, I've been feeling very restless lately. I've been feeling uneasy recently. Last night, I even dreamed that the child and I were separated from you and that we would never be able to see you again. What nonsense are you thinking? The three of us will be together forever. Go to sleep. When you fall asleep, I'll go. Jiang Tian's heart twitched. He pinched her delicate nose and said tenderly, I really hope that we can be together like this forever, quietly, peacefully and happily. Chinga leaned on Jiang Tian's big hand and whispered softly. Her eyelids became heavier and heavier, and she gradually fell asleep. After leaving Jiang Tian and his wife's room, Nalan Li immediately reported to Nalan Bo about the meeting that night. After listening to the report, Nalan Bo's face turned livid. His eyes were spitting fire as if he wanted to eat someone. Bastard! Nalan Bo smashed a high-quality Yuan Dynasty antique teacup on the ground, smashing it into pieces. Yeah, Kong Teichu is really a bastard. He even cut off my hands and damaged Nalan Jun's divine soul. He's turning against me. Nalan too fanned the flames. I said you're all bastards. Nalan Bo was so angry that his whole body trembled. He slapped Nalan Tu's face and shouted angrily, Have you forgotten what I said in the afternoon? Don't threaten Jiang Tian, don't despise Jiang Tian, and don't underestimate his strength. If you're so aggressive, Jiang Tian will kill you. If Jiang Tian wants to kill you, can you resist? Did my words fall on deaf ears? You only have yourself to blame for all this. Father, we know we're wrong. Nalan Li and his two brothers trembled in fear and kowtowed to the ground. Didn't I tell you not to have any bias? Just convey the opinion of reclusive royalty. Nalan Bo was so angry that his eyes turned red. He roared, "Who told you to threaten her like this? You even used Iran's past to threaten her. Don't you have any shame? But, after all, we're the Jin family's guardian family. We're their subjects. Moreover, he treated our Nalan family and Iran well. I'm also considering." Nalan Li tried to explain in vain. "Shut up." Nalan Bo raised his eyebrows. His gaze was so sharp that it could kill. He shouted coldly, "Don't you know the real surname of our Nalan family?" "I know Yehenra," Nalan Li said solemnly. "That's right. We're the descendants of Yehenra of the Nuzan tribe. But our tribe was destroyed by Nurhasai of the Manchurian Qing dynasty." Nalan Bo's eyes showed a trace of vicissitudes. He said in a deep voice, "Speaking of which, they're the biggest enemies of our tribe. Our ancestors couldn't defeat them, so they had to submit to the Aizen-Joro family." "That's right. After we submitted to them, the Aizen-Joro family treated us well. But as the Dragon Guardian family, we've been guarding this dragon vein for 300 years. We've been loyal and responsible. How much kindness have we not repaid? Are we still going to be his slaves?" "Father, you mean?" Nalan Li's face showed some confusion. "Even if we're going to welcome the arrival of the heavenly star small world, there's no need to form an alliance with the Aizen-Joro family." Nalan Bo said with a burning gaze. "When the time comes, the stellar sky domain will choose the strongest force on Earth as their representative. Reclusive royalty may not be necessary. We've chosen to form an alliance with the Tianqing school and support Jiang Tian. We're declaring war on the Holy See and the Brahmin." "What, father?" Nalan Li and the other two felt that their brains were fried. They couldn't come back to their senses. When a dynasty changes, it's time and destiny. It's even more important to pay attention to the strength and the will of the people. Nalan Bo said calmly. "Now, Sidoni is the world's strongest military power. It's also one of the top 5 economies in terms of total population. The country is prosperous and the people are at peace. What's the point of a reclusive royalty? Besides, their dragon vein is either dormant or destroyed. They're at the end of their days. There's nothing they can do to reverse the situation. If we stand on Jiang Tian's side, won't the Holy See and the Brahmin attack our Nalan family?" Nalan Li and his brothers were so scared that their faces turned pale. Chapter 983. Remember, Jiang Tian is our family. Nalan Bo waved his folding fan and said lightly, "We didn't support him before because Aizen-Joro's family kept stopping us. If we don't support him at this juncture, what kind of family are we? Our last chance is gone." A wise man like Nalan Bo had always been astute and farsighted. He took 1 step, looked at 2 steps, and calculated 3 steps. Nalan Bo had already considered everything when Zhao Xueqing contacted him to return to the province to sweep the tombs. The stellar sky domain and the ruins of immortals were always illusory legends. Whether they could descend or not was another matter. The most important thing now was that the Holy See and the Brahmin would invade Huaxia and destroy all the orthodoxies in Huaxia in the name of demons appearing in the east. A great war between the east and the west was about to break out. Whether it was the secular government of Huaxia, the military, the sects and aristocratic families, or the reclusive royalty, the enemies were the same. After all, this dispute involved the righteousness of the nation and the struggle between the East and the West. This dispute involved too many people and had far-reaching effects. It was also unprecedented since the ancient times until now. Whoever went to war with them would be able to win the most support. Whoever won would have the greatest prestige. If Jiang Tian defeated these 2 orthodoxies, the reclusive royalty would be nothing. You would have to submit to the winner. "Old Master, Jiang Tian requests to see you." At this moment, a loud and clear voice sounded. Jiang Tian suddenly walked over under the guidance of the butler. "Quickly invite him in. Quickly invite him in." Nalan Bo's expression changed. He was full of joy as he walked up quickly and stretched out his hands from afar. My dear grandson-in-law, I was sick and couldn't accompany you tonight. I didn't expect these good-for-nothings to be so rude. They made you angry. Jiang Tian bowed and cupped his fists as if nothing had happened and said, Junior Jiang Tian greets grandfather. We're all family. It's just a misunderstanding. I was just about to ask them to look for Jin So-hyun to discuss this matter and express their stance. What do you think? Nalan Bo and Jiang Tian held hands as they walked into the living room and sat down. With a face full of joy, Nalan Bo said, Don't worry, our Nalan family will support you unconditionally. Thank you, grandfather, for your help. Jiang Tian took the teacup from the maid and took a sip. He looked at Nalan Li and smiled faintly. I'll say it again. Aizenjoro family is nothing in my eyes. Tell them to behave themselves. Otherwise, I'll annihilate them. Do you really want to say that? Nalan Li hesitated. Jiang Tian smiled but said nothing. What are you afraid of? We have the world's #1 here. Nalan Bo swung his sleeves and snorted arrogantly. Yes, then we'll take our leave. Nalan Li and the other two quickly bowed and left. The three brothers had already reached the parking lot. Nalan Bo chased after them and whispered anxiously. Of course, you have to pay attention to your words. You can't provoke the conflict between Jiang Tian and the Aizenjoro family. Now that Jiang Tian is surrounded by enemies, we have to stand on Jiang Tian's side and use the power of reclusive royalty. After we've used them, it won't be too late to resist the control of the Aizenjoro family. Brother, what should we do? The old man wants to rely on Jiang Tian to get rid of the Aizenjoro family. The three of them took a Mercedes-Benz and sped through the night. They immediately rushed to Zhonghai to find Jin So-hyun and explain the situation. The atmosphere in the car was very gloomy. No one dared to speak. They were trembling in fear as if Jiang Tian was following them. When they were dozens of kilometers away from Wuzhen and on the highway, Nalan Tu said angrily, But Jiang Tian destroyed Nalan Jun's brain and broke my arms. We can't just admit it, right? Yeah, it's not smart for father to rashly make an enemy of reclusive royalty. They have immortals behind them. Nalan Yao also agreed. In my opinion, we should kill Jiang Tian and stand firmly on the side of reclusive royalty. Nalan Bo and Jiang Tian had overestimated the three brothers' breadth of mind. This kind of old and young were freaks that combined feudal desires and exquisite egoism. They would use that set of rules of behavior when it was beneficial to them. Jiang Tian had beaten them, humiliated and suppressed them. This had made the proud and arrogant people hate Jiang Tian to the core. We have indeed underestimated him. This matter needs to be discussed in the long term. Nalan Li's face was gloomy. The light in his eyes flickered as he said coldly. When Jiang Tian revealed his strength, he quickly thought it through. If Jiang Tian approved of the Nalan family, then he would not mind the Nalan family submitting to Tianqing school. However, if Jiang Tian had no feelings for the Nalan family and even held a grudge, then the Nalan family would push him out and use him as a sharp knife to deal with the two major orthodoxies in the world, the Jin family, and even the reclusive royalty and the Dragon Protection sect. When these forces were weakened, the Nalan family would naturally benefit. One had to know that today, all the martial arts families in Yanjing had been eliminated by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian was also living overseas. Looking at Huaxia, or even the whole world, how could there be a decent martial arts family? The ones who would benefit in the end would naturally be the Nalan family who was watching from the sidelines. The Nalan family who only shouted and did not put in any effort. At that time, all the orthodoxies and forces in the world would be abolished. Who would the Stellar Sky domain choose? It could only be the Nalan family. Nalan Yao and Nalan Tu were not stupid. They were just limited by their old thinking patterns. Now, after hearing this, they suddenly understood. However, Kong Teichu's strength is unfathomable. He is indeed a rare cultivation genius. In the end, Nalan Li's face was still solemn. He said worriedly, This move is very dangerous. If we make a mistake, it will be a huge mistake. If we are not careful, we will lose the whole game. So, we must hide in the back and fan the flames. Don't jump out easily. They did not like Jiang Tian. In the end, they decided to intensify the conflict and push him out. Not only did he have to bear the Holy See and Brahmin, but he also had to bear the reclusive royalty of Huaxia. Jiang Tian, oh Jiang Tian, how dare you disregard family ties and have no respect for your elders? You even attacked us elders. A trace of ruthlessness appeared in the depths of Nailan Tu's eyes. Let's see how you can withstand the anger of the Aizen family under the pressure of the army. Jiang Tian, back then, I was old-fashioned and did not bring back Qing'er's mother's ashes and memorial tablet. I hurt Qing'er's heart. Please don't blame me. After Nailan Bo returned to the living room, he quickly cupped his fists and said sincerely. When Grandma heard the news, she also came out. She cried silently on the side, saying that Nailan Iran was wronged because of the pressure from the Jin family. Jiang Tian waved his hand and comforted them gently. Grandpa, Grandma, this matter is over. Don't take it to heart. At that time, the situation forced me to do it. Moreover, Nailan Jun's divine soul is injured. Don't worry. As long as he doesn't act recklessly, I will help him repair it. Damaged divine soul can be repaired? Jiang Tian, you are really capable. Nailan Bo and Grandma were overjoyed. In any case, Nailan Jun was also their grandson. They were both flesh and blood. Of course, they didn't want Nailan Jun to suffer a loss. I just used some means to punish him. I didn't want to hurt him. Jiang Tian smiled and then changed the topic. He asked, however, what did Qing'er's mother do back then? Her ashes and memorial tablet are still not returned. They even scolded Qing'er as a troublemaker. Nailan Bo and Grandma hesitated for a moment, then smiled bitterly and sighed. It's all old sesame seeds and rotten grains. Don't mention it. In short, now in our hearts, Nailan Iran is our good daughter. Jiang Tian said seriously, Grandpa, Grandma, I am not curious about that history, but the baby in Qing'er's body is the same as her physique. Qing'er's physique is very weak now. Nailan Bo and Grandma's faces suddenly changed. Grandma was even shocked and trembled. You can rest assured. If you speak now, Qing'er will not notice the slightest. Seeing that Nailan Bo and Grandma were still hesitant, Jiang Tian bent his fingers and flicked. A wave of seventh metal true essence condensed into runes and completely shrouded the three people. Nailan Bo and the old lady looked at each other and nodded. The old lady then slowly opened her mouth. Iran's pregnancy is very strange. She insisted that she did not have a relationship with any man at the beginning, but she was inexplicably pregnant. We checked afterwards and it was indeed so. But she is the same as Qing'er. She is compassionate and thinks that Qing'er is innocent, so she insists on not aborting it. Listening to Grandma's words, Jiang Tian's head immediately buzzed. With a loud sound, his face was pale and his heart fell into the abyss. Grandma would not lie. She even took out some brittle and yellowed medical records. They were many physical examinations when Nailan Iran was pregnant. Things from more than 20 years ago were not fake. At this time, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He was already sure. Qing'er's biological father was not Zhao Huqing, but her biological mother, strictly speaking, was not Nailan Iran. It was likely that a superpower from the depths of the universe used a secret method to put Qing'er in the embryonic state into Nailan Iran's body and borrowed Nailan Iran's body to give birth to Qing'er. Just like a test tube baby? No, it should be said that it was like a surrogate pregnancy. Nailan Iran was only borrowed the womb and qi and blood. However, what was the purpose of this powerful person to do this? Jiang Tian frowned and thought hard. Was it just to borrow Nailan Iran's life to avoid the fate of being swallowed by Qing'er with the pure phoenix immortal body? Qing'er's physique is 1 in a billion, including melting everything, but Star Destroyer swallowed most of the ancient Earth's spiritual qi. Is Qing'er's origin related to Star Destroyer? It was as if a thunderbolt had struck Jiang Tian's mind. Suddenly an electric light flashed, causing his body to tremble. Chapter 984. Did that almighty figure know about Star Destroyer's existence and wanted to use him and Zhao Xueqing to create a supreme spirit embryo? What was the purpose of creating a spirit embryo? Was it to create a disciple with excellent aptitude, or to possess someone? Jiang Tian's master was called the Undying Monarch. He was one of the immortal emperors in the celestial world and had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. The Undying Monarch was extremely strict with his disciples. That was why Jiang Tian and a few of his fellow disciples secretly called him Old Fart behind his back. It was said that he had ascended from ancient Earth, but he did not return to Earth often. He would only travel the universe once every 10,000 years, spending as long as 100 years. The Undying Monarch's purpose of traveling the universe was to find humans with excellent aptitudes to become his disciples. In Jiang Tian's previous life, it was already 2018 when the Undying Monarch took Jiang Tian away from Earth. In 2012, after the Jiang family was destroyed, Lu Wangfeng coveted Zhao Xueqing's beauty and immediately began to attack the Zhao family with many other families in Linzhou. Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing struggled for a few more years. In 2018, Zhao Xueqing was forced to commit suicide. Jiang Tian could no longer hold on and committed suicide by jumping off a cliff in Linzhou. It was also at that time that Jiang Tian was taken away by the Undying Monarch who was traveling the universe. Jiang Tian felt that this was too much of a coincidence. His luck was too good. Jumping off a cliff to pick up a secret manual and meeting an old grandpa. This was a lousy trope in wuxia novels. After accepting Jiang Tian as his sixth disciple, the Undying Monarch had always been dissatisfied with Jiang Tian. In Jiang Tian's previous life, Jiang Tian had an ordinary physique and did not have a spiritual root at all. The Undying Monarch had used a vast amount of supreme-grade spiritual pills just to help him evolve into a spiritual body. If it weren't for the fact that Jiang Tian was filled with resentment, he wouldn't have had the chance to ascend to the top of the Hongmeng God stage with his unimaginable wisdom and willpower. Eventually, he would reach a height that even the Undying Emperor would have to look up to. At this moment, Jiang Tian couldn't help but think, perhaps the immortal emperor's arrival on Earth in his previous life was not a coincidence at all, but a precise plan. His goal wasn't even to take him away, but Zhao Xueqing. After all, Zhao Xueqing had the best physique. It was only because Zhao Xueqing had already turned into a pile of dust that he had no other choice but to take her away. Come to think of it, the immortal emperor and Jiang Tian had spent a lot of time together in his previous life, but he had never told Jiang Tian how the ancient Earth had evolved into a backward, exhausted, dead planet. He had never even mentioned it. Since his return, he had noticed the changes of the ancient Earth and even learned about the existence of Star Destroyer. Jiang Tian had always thought that the immortal emperor might have missed the great changes of the ancient Earth and never mentioned it. After all, he had only traveled the universe and passed by Earth once every tens of thousands of years. But now, it seemed that it wasn't that simple. After all, the immortal emperor was a terrible existence who had reached the immortal emperor level. He could see through Earth at a glance, so how could Star Destroyer escape his eyes? What's going on? Could it be that it's not a coincidence? Jiang Tian's eyes were sharp and flickering, but he couldn't see through the layer of fog. His mind was churning, and his thoughts were a little chaotic for a moment. Jiang Tian, what's wrong with you? At this time, his grandmother had already told him about Nalan Iran's 5 stages of decline and the drying of her qi and blood after she was pregnant. She found that Jiang Tian was in a daze and didn't wake Jiang Tian up even after she shouted a few times. She couldn't help but wave her hand in front of Jiang Tian's eyes. Nothing. Please continue. Jiang Tian withdrew his thoughts and said with a smile. After his grandmother finished speaking, Jiang Tian's face was dignified, and his heart was beating wildly. He was already sure. The immortal body of the stainless Phoenix Maiden would indeed crazily rob the vitality of the mother body, and Nalan Iran's death was indeed caused by Zhao Xueqing. Now, Zhao Xueqing had become the second Nalan Iran, and she was also facing the fate of having her blood sucked by her daughter and her life declining. I don't care. In this life, I've been reborn to change my fate and surpass the glory of my previous life. Jiang Tian's eyes shot out rays of light, and he clenched his fists as if he wanted to hold the rotation of the sun and the moon. His heart gradually calmed down. I've changed the fate of the Jiang family's destruction in 2012, and I'm going to completely rewrite the fate of Qing'er and me. After all, the rich experience that I've accumulated in my previous life is not for nothing. At this time, the cold light in Jiang Tian's eyes was so sharp that it seemed to be able to pierce the sky, and his mind was racing. I must come up with a foolproof plan. Qing'er must be saved, and my daughter must be saved. Although I knew very little about the immortal body of the stainless phoenix maiden in my previous life, the basic rules of cultivation will never change. Jiang Tian, let's discuss how to deal with the holy sea and the Brahmin. After Nailan Bo finished speaking, he suggested softly. However, Jiang Tian had already stood up, and his eyes were staring blankly. Without saying a word, he walked toward his courtyard as if he had turned a deaf ear to him. That night, the sky was gloomy and dark, and one couldn't even see their own fingers. Jiang Tian didn't sleep at all. From time to time, he paced around the campus like a manic lion, and from time to time, he sat there in a daze, smoking a cigarette that he had never touched since his rebirth. His eyes were flickering, and in the depths of his eyes, array diagrams and cultivation technique formulas appeared one after another. At the same time, he was calculating with precision, and his calculation ability soared to the extreme. His divine sense was churning like boiling molten steel, as if he had a high fever that wouldn't subside. His face was blood red, and his temples were emitting wisps of green smoke. Ideas came one after another, and plans appeared in his mind, but they were all rejected and overturned. Before he knew it, the night had passed. At this time, a loud rooster crowed outside, and a bright red rising sun spurted out, sprinkling thousands of golden rays that enveloped the small courtyard. It was daybreak. Jiang Tian's eyes were red and bloodshot, but the corners of his mouth were curled up in an ecstatic smile. This was because an incomparably vast and grand plan had finally taken shape in his mind. In the end, Qing'er and the brat just have empty constitutions and lack the nourishment of spirit qi. Then I'll seize all the spirit qi seeds in all the dimensional worlds, set up a super array, and trigger the recovery of spirit qi on planet destruction to create a supreme spirit embryo. There were two branches of the reclusive royal family that had a lot to do with the Tang dynasty. One was the Li family, and the other was the Wu family, which came from the bloodline of Wu Zetian. The Wu family was different from the Aizen Zhoro family. The Wu family's degree of integration into modern society was very high. The Wu family flourished in the business world, and they were involved in all kinds of industries. They were one of the top 10 financial groups in Huaxia, and the scale of their assets was no less than the Jiang families. Moreover, they also had a great influence in the politics of Huaxia. Many of the feudal officials were very close to them, and they had even helped them before. The current Wu family had almost completely shed the color of reclusive royalty. If it weren't for the fact that their group was called Moon in the Sky, and that all the family heads were female, no one would have thought that this family was also a reclusive royalty. Zhonghai, next to the landmark Oriental Pearl Tower. The headquarters of the Moon in the Sky group stood proudly like a peerless mountain, overlooking the torrential Huangpu River. The 95th floor of the building was derived from the meaning of the emperor overlooking the world. The next morning, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, a peerlessly enchanting woman held a glass of enchanting red wine and calmly looked down at the torrential Huangpu River. This was a woman whose age couldn't be determined. On her snowy face, a pair of clear eyes, a fine nose, and slightly plump lips gave off an exotic sense of beauty. She didn't seem to be completely of Han descent. Her temperament was a mix of charm and innocence. She had the charm of a young married woman, but also the purity of a budding young girl. Overall, she gave people a sense of sternness, as if she was looking down on the world, and no one dared to profane her. She wore a gray professional suit designed by the ace designer of Givenchy, which wrapped around her hot and sexy body. A pair of custom-made Prada high heels, and a pair of black stockings that were extremely glossy like a second layer of skin, made her look even more slender and elegant. "Master, Mr. Jean is here. Dong dong dong. Heavy footsteps could be heard, and the floor seemed to be shaking violently. An unusually tall female assistant walked in and looked at the woman by the window with reverence. She bowed and said in a low voice. The female assistant was 9 meters tall, with short hair and an ugly face. She was wearing a tight leather jacket, camouflage pants, and riveted military boots. Her muscles were not as bulky as those of a bodybuilder, but they were strong and full of explosive power. She was already at the immortal state perfection, and her body had entered the immortal state. Like a female King Kong, she had infinite strength. She could withstand bullets with her body, dismantle armored vehicles with her bare hands, and blow up artillery shells with one blow. Such a person could intimidate a tyrant and control a country or a religion. She was on par with the moon-worshipping wolf King Alexander and the long formation Yi Zhantin. However, at this moment, she was respectful to the woman by the window, as if the most loyal believer had met a god. Because the woman by the window seemed to be a domineering female CEO, a female devil in the workplace, full of modern vibes. However, only the hidden imperial family and the dragon protector bloodline knew about the people on this plane. This woman was the famous head of the reclusive royalty Wu family, Lady Wu. Chapter 985. This Jin So-hyun is very arrogant. He always likes to put on airs. Tell him to wait for half an hour. We'll meet again. Lady Wu turned around slightly, blinked her eyes, and said with a smile. She was too beautiful, too perfect. Her figure was so hot that she could be a supermodel. Her face was so exquisite that it could make men and even women's hearts beat faster and suffocate. Yes, master. The female assistant Luo Fei's heart raced and her face turned red. She didn't dare to look at Lady Wu's beautiful face. In fact, Luo Fei also had a strong background. She was the descendant of Luo Binwang, one of the 4 heroes of the Tang dynasty. Luo Binwang was in the first year of Wu Zetian's life. He wrote the declaration of seeking Wu Zetian for Su Jingye, who led an army against Wu Zetian in Yangzhou. Su Jingye was defeated, and Luo Binwang fled. He was either killed or became a monk. But in reality, the Wu family didn't hate Luo Binwang's descendant because of this. Instead, they took him in as a subordinate. For thousands of years, the Luo family had supported the Wu family with all their strength. Luo Fei went out to give a few orders. When she returned, she saw that Lady Wu had already removed her high heels, revealing a pair of beautiful feet wrapped in stockings. Fried chicken with red wine. My favorite. She sat cross-legged on the sofa and stretched. She reached out and picked up a piece of fried chicken from the paper bag on the coffee table. She ate it with red wine while her other hand quickly operated the game on the tablet. My lord, what do you think Jin So-hyun wants to talk to us about? The female assistant Luo Fei lowered her head slightly and saw Lady Wu's snowy chest. She quickly looked away. If the descendants of the Tang dynasty are lions and tigers, then the Aizenjoro family is a fox. They're not strong enough, unwilling to contribute, and very cunning. Lady Wu didn't even raise her head. She was focused on playing the game. Our Wu clan has already sent out 300 experts to intercept the Holy See and Brahmin experts who have invaded Huaxia. 30 people have died and 50 are injured, but the Jin family hasn't made a move yet. However, the invasion of the Holy See and the Brahmin gave him some kind of opportunity. He probably wants to seek benefits. She frowned. But which piece does he want to eat? Should they pay the current Huaxia secular government, or should they pay the reclusive royalty? Kong Taechu? He can't be thinking about Kong Taechu, right? Why should we support Kong Taechu? The Wu clan has never met him before and has no relationship with him at all. Luo Fei asked in a muffled voice. The Holy See and the Brahmin aren't just targeting Kong Taechu, they're targeting the entire cultivation world of Huaxia. Lady Wu raised her eyebrows and snorted arrogantly. Kong Taechu is just an excuse for them to attack. And I heard that Kong Taechu is injured. That's why they're so arrogant. However, do they think that our Wu clan doesn't exist? As the descendants of Huaxia, especially the former imperial family, we can't just sit back and do nothing. Look, now, it's not just our clan that's dealing with the Brahmin and the Holy See. The Lu clan of the Great Han Dynasty, the Yang clan of the Great Sui, and even the Ying clan of the Great Qin Dynasty have all made a move. Those who offend Huaxia will be punished no matter how far away they are. Although our imperial family's fate has come to an end, as long as there's a little bit of our descendants, as long as there's still a breath left, we'll fight the invaders to the end, to guard the most glorious era of these 5,000 years. The Holy See and the Brahmin had announced that they were going to war with the cultivation world of Huaxia. In fact, they had already started to advance from the Lansung River area. Moreover, they had sent out thousands of top experts, including hundreds of immortal state and above. This momentum was much stronger than when the Covenant of Darkness invaded Sidoni. However, the reclusive royalty of Huaxia had also made a move. They began to intercept and snipe at the southwest border. The two sides were locked in a fierce battle. The reason why St. Augu could flaunt his strength was that he was lucky to be the first to rush to the hinterland of Huaxia. In fact, the real battle situation was 10 times more tragic than what was exposed in front of everyone. In the major battlefields at the border, more than a dozen immortal state and earth immortals had already fallen from both sides. It could be said that if the reclusive royalty hadn't made a move to intercept and kill, the Holy See and the Brahmin might have already marched straight in. After all, this time, the Holy See and the Brahmin had mobilized old monsters in hibernation. Many of them were terrifying existences with a lifespan of hundreds of years. As for Huaxia, the two trump cards of Hongmeng and the Kunlun sect had not been used for some reason. As for the Huaxia Long formation, compared to them, it wasn't even on the same level. This was because the Huaxia Long formation had been created to deal with superpowers like the Palace of Gods, the Winter Soldiers, the United States Blue Storm, and the Universal Shield. In short, whether it was the Huaxia Long formation or the Winter Soldiers and the Universal Shield, they were all openly or secretly attached to secular countries and worked for secular governments. However, the Holy See and the Brahmin were thousand-year-old orthodoxies. Their believers were all over the world and their foundations were extremely deep. This had already surpassed countries and ideologies. In other words, it was at least comparable to an independent kingdom. That level and foundation were too terrifying. Many of the martial arts families in Yanjing had been wiped out by Jiang Tian. Previously, Jiang Tian hadn't made a move, and the Tianqing school was overseas. On the surface, Huaxia was a flat land that could be trampled on by anyone. Originally, many of the reclusive royalty had deep foundations and powerful strength, far surpassing the average martial arts family, and far surpassing tyrants like Huqin Tian and Yi Wudao. However, many people understood that the reclusive royalty's era had passed. Their glory were also a thing of the past. Some of them were obsessed with cultivation and didn't care about worldly affairs. Some were involved in business, politics, or the military. But overall, they had erased the color of the royal family and were in a state of hiding. They were so low-key that people usually couldn't sense their existence. However, during this period of time, a great enemy attacked. The East and the West were fighting. The Brahmin even jumped out to take advantage of the situation. The only thing that could resist the Holy See and the Brahmin was Huaxia's reclusive royalty. They had no choice but to show their ferocious claws and teeth. The efforts of the master and the descendants of the royal family are touching and admirable. Luo Fei said with a respectful face and a serious expression. There's nothing to admire. Lady Wu said casually. As the saying goes, no egg can remain intact when the nest is overturned. Even if we are not the royal family, even if we are just ordinary Huaxia people, we should do something to protect this rare prosperity. Our ancestors, the royal family for generations, didn't they do it for the well-being of the people and for peace and prosperity? President Wu's words are very reasonable. But didn't you say that you were in a meeting? Why are you eating? A hearty laugh rang out. Jin Zixuan walked in unhurriedly with his hands behind his back, striding with his feet splayed outwards. Seeing him come in, Lady Wu curled up on the sofa coquettishly like a lazy kitten and didn't get up. She smiled sweetly and said, "Eating while having a video conference." She didn't have the manners of a royal family at all. She was just like your ancestors, a femme fatale. Jin So-hyun snorted coldly in his heart, but his expression didn't change. He sat down on the sofa opposite him. The silver-haired Grand Preceptor stood straight behind him. Jin So-hyun said calmly, "I don't have time to waste with you. I have a suggestion that I would like to discuss with the Wu family head. Please speak. The royal family of Hua-xia respects me. I am the emperor. Together, we will conquer the world and welcome the arrival of the immortals of the small world." Jin So-hyun said proudly. "Conquer the world? Are you crazy?" Lady Wu's eyes widened in surprise. She curled her lips and said disdainfully, "What era is this? This is the 21st century. No matter how powerful the Aizenjoro family is, do you think they are a match for us? Don't forget that we were the ones who were defeated by the Eight-Nation Alliance." "Lady Wu, watch your words." The Grand Preceptor shouted angrily as a violent wave of qi surged out. After all, he was an earth-level deity. His body, soul energy, and true qi had all reached an unimaginable level. His roar was powerful enough to kill a transcendent grandmaster. "What are you shouting for? This is not the place for you to be so presumptuous. The Jin family is the royal family, but isn't the Wu family head?" Luo Fei furrowed his brows and glared like a Vajra. He let out a thunderous roar that sounded like a cannonball exploding. The violent sound wave shook the bulletproof glass and made it creak. "Luo Fei, don't be rude." The martial demon lady, on the other hand, was completely unaffected. Her entire body trembled as she giggled. "Don't be angry, Grand Preceptor. The wind is howling. It's scary." She covered her fair breasts with her hands and said with a smile, "Besides, I'm telling the truth. Prince Jin, this is not our era anymore. Accept your fate." Although he was clearly offended, Jin Zishuan could not get angry at her seductive appearance. Instead, his heart was itching and restless. He could not help but curse the demoness in his heart for harming others. Hua-xia can't live without an emperor. Jin So-hyun waved his folding fan and snorted. "You are right. The Aizenjoro family is no match for them, but what if we take down Sidoni and the Tianqing school first?" "Oh, so you are after Kong Taechu." Lady Wu understood. However, she snorted and said, "Hee, do you think you can defeat Sidoni? He is the most powerful military force in the world. I heard that the Russian emperor was scared out of his wits when the Kuelian tested it. The Tianqing school, the Tianjun army, the Hong sect, the Huaxiaolong formation, the Cherry Blossom Society. Which one of Kong Taechu's forces are you going to mess with? Even if Kong Taechu is alone, all the overlords of the Jin family might not be able to defeat him." Chapter 986. "Of course, I have my ways to restrain him." Jin So-hyun laughed disdainfully as if victory was already in his hands. "Kong Taechu will obediently give up Sidoni and Tianqing school. The Aizenjoro family is best at subduing enemies without a fight. Moreover, we have the support of Heavenly Star's small world in the future." "Oh, Mr. Jin, are you that confident?" Lady Wu still had a smile on her face, but she shook her head disdainfully in her heart. "You think too highly of Kong Taechu. He dominated the world and suppressed the superpowers of the world. Even if your Aizenjoro family was at its peak, could you have achieved such an achievement?" At this moment, his cell phone rang. It was Nalan. Lee. Jin So-hyun said calmly, "Look, the Nalan family has called. They must have already taken down Kong Taechu." Jin So-hyun laughed and answered the phone. "Mr. Jin, the negotiations have reached a conclusion, and we have arrived in Zhonghai. We would like to report to you in person." "Oh, I'm at the Moon in the Sky building. Lady Wu is also there. Let's listen together." Jin So-hyun wanted to show off in front of Lady Wu. "I think it's better if I report to you alone." Nalan Lee seemed to hesitate for a moment. "They're not outsiders." "It doesn't matter." Jin So-hyun was full of confidence and laughed casually. After hanging up the phone, Jin So-hyun's blood was boiling. He laughed and said, "Demonis, if we use Sidoni as our base, we should have a 100% chance of dominating the world with reclusive royalty, right? What kind of power would the 9 great royal families have gathered together?" He sipped his tea and said proudly, "If I take down Sidoni, you will live under my roof, respect me as your master, and call me the human emperor. Isn't that what you should do?" The so-called human emperor was the emperor of the East, the emperor of reclusive royalty. It could be said that he was the emperor of emperors, the supreme being. Even the reclusive royalty of Hua-Xia and the Dragon Protector clan had to listen to him and not disobey him in the slightest. You call yourself the human sovereign? You need the emperor's decree. The martial demon lady was unmoved and mocked him. As far as I know, the human emperor's token has been taken away by the dimensional world. Your Jin family doesn't have it either. I'll get the human emperor's decree sooner or later. Jin So-hyun's eyes flashed with a trace of heat. His gaze was firm as he clenched his fists and snorted coldly. I've taken down Sidoni and suppressed the entire world. Naturally, my contributions are the highest. Would the immortals give the human emperor's token to others? They were talking. Greetings, Prince Jin. Greetings, Patriarch Wu. Nalan Li and his 2 brothers hurried in and bowed respectfully to Jin So-hyun and Lady Wu, as if they were servants meeting their masters. After all, they were only members of the Dragon Protector clan. There was still a big gap between their status and that of the royal family. "Tell me, what's the situation?" Jin So-hyun gently waved his folding fan and said calmly, "Kong Tae-chu must be flattered and grateful to cooperate with the reclusive royalty." Kong Tu refused. Nalan Li hesitated for a moment with an embarrassed expression. Then he spoke with difficulty, his voice trembling and interfering. "What?" He refused. Jin So-hyun couldn't believe it. Then he became furious and suddenly slammed the table. The antique sandalwood table immediately shattered. "Old Jin, my table. The antique I bought for millions of yuan is priceless. You have to compensate me." Lady Wu screamed exaggeratedly, but she wasn't surprised at all. Jin So-hyun stood up and paced back and forth like a manic lion. He trembled all over and said, "Kong Tae-chu actually dared to refuse me? Isn't he afraid of my thunderous anger? This guy is very arrogant. He said that the reclusive royalty's luck is already broken and his strength is too weak. He still dares to call himself an immortal. What the hell?" On the side, Nalan too fanned the flames and said, "Prince, look, he even cut off my arms. They've just been reattached. I don't know if they'll be healed." He pretended to be upset and complained with a bitter face, feeling extremely wronged. He even forced our Nalan clan to worship him as our leader. Otherwise, he'll exterminate our Nalan family. What? Jin So-hyun couldn't believe it. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. He sneered and said, "Your Nalan family is the dignified dragon guardian tribe. Now you're worshipping him. Is Kong Tae-chu a true dragon? Is he the son of heaven?" His handsome face was ashen and gloomy. He said disdainfully, "He's just a mortal who controls a small piece of land and has a few Kunlun slaves as his people. How dare he call himself an immortal and a king in the south? He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Ridiculous. Humph, if it weren't for the reclusive royalty, the Holy See and Brahmin would have marched straight into the Great Orthodoxy War. Kong Tae-chu would have been cut into pieces. Our reclusive royalty has helped him so much. Now he's unwilling to give up some benefits. He's narrow-minded and won't be able to achieve anything. What the hell is he? It seems that your Jin family didn't do anything to resist the Holy See and Brahmin." The martial demon lady cursed in her heart, but she didn't say anything. "Isn't that so?" Nalan Li sneered in his heart and echoed, "Cooperating with the reclusive royalty is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's also Kong Tae-chu's glory. The royal family has a place to show off their strength, and the Tianqing school's power will also grow. It's the best of both worlds. But he's useless. Lady Wu, you've seen how arrogant Kong Tae-chu is. He's shameless. Jin So-hyun's face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He swung his sleeves and sneered, "Why should we support him with the reclusive royalty? He's trying to get cold feet. Withdraw your troops." Lady Wu still wanted to make peace. Originally, the Wu family didn't take action because of Kang Tae-chu, but for the sake of national righteousness. But at this moment, her cell phone suddenly rang. Lady Wu answered a few words, and her face suddenly changed. Then she hung up the phone and said with a wry smile, "Alas, it's impossible to send troops now." "What's wrong?" Jin So-hyun asked. Thousands of masters gathered by the Holy See and Brahmin broke through the warriors' defense line at the southwest border. "We can't hold on any longer," Lady Wu said with a pale face. Good. Jin So-hyun wasn't shocked, but happy. He gloated, "Kang Tae-chu is now in Hwaseong. I'd like to see how Kang Tae-chu can resist these tigers and wolves." "Then Kang Tae-chu?" Nalan Lee asked. "Tomorrow, I'll go and meet him. I'd like to see how tough Kang Tae-chu can be." Jin So-hyun snorted with a fierce look. "I'll trample on him and let him know who's the ant. Who's the true son of heaven? Who's the master of the strong in Hwaseong?" "Prince Jin, you must be careful." Lady Wu's face changed. She put on her shoes and got off the sofa. She stood up and said seriously, "I heard that Kang Tae-chu is arrogant and unruly. He's fierce and difficult to provoke. Don't provoke Kang Tae-chu's anger. The enemy is right in front of us. We haven't killed many of them, but we're already in chaos. I have my own decision. What did his anger amount to? He can't even withstand a single blow from me. He can only kneel and beg for mercy." Jin Zishuan's eyes were filled with arrogance as he snorted coldly. He was completely unmoved as he swaggered off. Who was he? He was the descendant of the Aizen-Joro family. He was the crown prince and the future head of the family. He had connections with the stellar sky domain. No matter how strong Kang Tae-chu was, he was just a commoner. How could he compare to the original royal family? "Wu family head, I'll take my leave." As for Nalan Lee and the other two, they followed after him. A smile of schadenfreude appeared at the corners of their mouths. They were so happy that the muscles on their faces were twitching crazily. "Hee, our Nalan family can't deal with you. I don't believe that Jin So-hyun can't suppress you. They have 3 Earth Immortals. They are the authentic reclusive royalty. They have a strong foundation. These 3 are Kang Tae-chu. Oh, Kang Tae. Even if you have cultivation, you've just recovered from your serious injuries. I'm afraid you're not at your peak. At most, you're in the human immortal realm. How could you be a match for 3 Earth Immortals? What's more, Jin So-hyun was the deputy head of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. He could mobilize more forces. Jiang Tian. Oh, Jiang Tian, you're surrounded by enemies. The Holy See, the Brahmin, and Hwaseong's reclusive royalty. Who could withstand it? Your time of death has come. Nalan Lee and the other 2 brothers didn't say a word. However, deep in their eyes, there was a sharp and cold killing intent. How dare you slap my face? How dare you trample on the dragon protection lineage? This time, I'll make you regret it. I'll make you cry and kneel before me. Then, I'll cut you into pieces and put you to death. Chapter 987. He couldn't bear Nalan Bo's humble pleading. The next morning, Jiang Tian restored Nalan Jun's memory and took out the soul-devouring avatar. Nalan Bo promised again and again that the Nalan family would never offend Jiang Tian again. They would respect Jiang Tian in the future. After Nalan Lee and his brothers came back, they seemed very calm. They didn't show off in front of Jiang Tian. Instead, they were more respectful to Jiang Tian and waited for Jin So-hyun to come and suppress Jiang Tian. Naranqing has secretly found Jiang Tian and said with a serious face, "Jiang Tian, Jin So-hyun is likely to come and talk to you face to face. He might even attack you. You'd better leave." Aizen-Joro family was very powerful. It was said that they had Earth Immortals and powerful people. Who would dare to provoke them? They also had a place in the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. Even if Jiang Tian was a celestial immortal, he would probably be crushed by them. Although the Tianqing school had a lot of people, the Holy See and the Brahmin were too much for him to deal with. Let's talk. Why should I leave? Jiang Tian was sketching the 9 dragons' spirit guiding array on the map. He didn't even raise his head. He didn't care about this at all. I tried to persuade you, but you didn't listen. If you want to die, then go to hell. Narenqinghe couldn't help but be disappointed with Jiang Tian. Her eyes were cold as she muttered softly. He didn't know how to hide his strength and avoid the sharp edge. No matter how strong he was, he would fall sooner or later. Do you know that if others talked to me like this, they would have died several times? Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Narenqinghe. You want to kill me? Why don't you know how to be kind? Narenqinghe was so scared that she stumbled back. However, in the end, Jiang Tian shook his head and chuckled. Forget it. I won't kill you on account of your kindness. I have good intentions, but you want to kill me. It seems that I shouldn't be on your side. Narenqinghe is full of resentment. She turns around and leaves, leaving Jiang Tian alone in the study to draw the outline of the formation. Jiang Tian quickly finished drawing the 9 dragons guiding soul array. At this time, Yi Tianren suddenly contacted Jiang Tian to report the situation. Originally, they had planned to lure the enemy deep into the Kuelian territory and use the medium-sized Kuelian to kill the invaders. However, he did not expect the Ying family, Zhu family, Li family, Wu family, and other families to join the battle. Moreover, they didn't listen to orders and went their own way. Their attempts to lure the enemy were interrupted several times. What kind of trouble do you think you're going to cause? Jiang Tian was so angry that his eyebrows twitched. He snorted and said, "Announce that Tianqing school doesn't need their help. Tell them to get lost." Yes. Master. Yi Tianren received the order and immediately issued the announcement. He also asked Chao Shixiang to mediate and get the reclusive royalty people to withdraw from the battlefield. The formation is completed. What we lack now is 9 spiritual energy revival seeds. The Brahmin and the Holy See should have a teleportation formation that leads to West Earth and the Heavenly Kingdom. The divine light in Jiang Tian's eyes was extinguished, shooting out like swords. He couldn't wait to slaughter the Holy See and the Brahmin, kill his way to the Heavenly Kingdom and the West Earth, and find the spiritual energy revival seeds. However, the Qingming festival was coming soon. Jiang Tian also wanted to fulfill Qing'er's wish, so he was not in a hurry. Jiang Tian and Nalin Bo organized the ceremony for the return of Nalin Iran's ashes. However, Narenqinghe was no longer willing to pay attention to Jiang Tian. Every time she saw him, she would stay far away from him. Soon, the Qingming festival arrived. In the western suburbs of Wuzhen, on a desolate mountain, the sky was covered with dark clouds and drizzling. Jiang Tian, who was dressed in black, held a large black umbrella and stood behind Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing, who was dressed in a black dress, looked at the picture of the beautiful woman on the tombstone. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she sobbed. "Mom, I've grown up. I'm married and I'm pregnant. My husband's name is Jiang Tian. He's very powerful. He's the most powerful person in the entire world. He loves me very much. Don't worry, no one can hurt me anymore. I'm sorry. I'm unfilial. I haven't come to see you all these years." At that moment, she was in a trance. It was as if the gentle woman in the picture was smiling at her. It was as if she was telling her that she had never regretted her choice to give birth to Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing tearfully offered a wreath and offerings. She said gently, "Mom, we're here to bring you home." Zhao Qianru instructed a few workers to open the tomb and take out the urn. Zhao Xueqing hugged it tightly in her arms and rushed to the Nalin family's cemetery. The Nalin family's cemetery was located on a hillside in the northern suburbs of Wuzhen. It was a good location to hide the wind and gather water. It occupied an area of about 100 acres. At that moment, in the cemetery, it was filled with the direct and collateral descendants. Everyone was dressed in black and had solemn expressions. Even the injured Nalin too was present, even though he was in a wheelchair. However, his expression was a little gloomy. Dad, almost everyone is here. Qing'er and Jiang Tian are here too. Nailin Li stepped forward and said, "Good." Nailin Bo nodded and stepped forward with a walking stick. He scanned the crowd and said, "Today, I have two things to announce. First, from today onwards, Iran's ashes will be moved to the family cemetery. The memorial tablet will be returned to the family ancestral hall." He looked at Zhao Xueqing apologetically and said, "Qing, back then, because of my conservative thinking, I didn't publicly acknowledge you. I've made you suffer, and I've also made your mother suffer. No matter what, the blood that flows in your veins is the blood of my Nailin family. Today, grandfather apologizes to you and your mother." As he spoke, he bowed deeply to Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing quickly stepped forward to support him. She said sadly, "It's all in the past. Grandpa, please don't take it to heart. In the end, people have to look forward. I'm old. As the saying goes, one can only know one's destiny at 50. I have a rough idea of how long I can live." Nailin Bo straightened up and scanned the crowd. He said in a loud voice, "I won't live long. I don't have long to live. The Nailin family needs a suitable leader to rebuild the family's glory." As soon as he said this, everyone's face changed. Nailin Li's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He couldn't believe it. Originally, Nailin Li was the head of the family. Nailin Bo's words were obviously trying to deprive him of the position. The second thing I want to announce is that from today onwards, Zhao Xueqing will be the head of the Nailin family. Nailin Li has another appointment. As soon as he said this, the crowd was in an uproar. "Father, how can you do this? I don't accept this." Nailin Li was as if he was struck by lightning. His face turned ashen and then red as he shouted angrily, "Father, she's still young. Can she take on such a big responsibility?" Li Roshi glared viciously at Zhao Xueqing and screamed threateningly, "Zhao Xueqing, do you dare to take on this position? I'm afraid you won't be able to hold it. Father, if you're so biased towards this evil creature, we'll leave the Nailin family immediately. We'll break off our relationship." Nailin Tu's face was full of jealousy. His gaze shot towards Zhao Xueqing like an arrow and said coldly, "Tianqing School and Jiang Tian are enemies on all sides. They're going to be finished soon. Now that you're tied to them, you're digging your own grave. A married person is like water that has been poured out. She's just a granddaughter. How can she take on such a heavy responsibility?" Nailin Qinghe was so angry that she almost went crazy. She didn't care about her bearing and danced with joy as she shouted hysterically. Originally, they didn't want to fall out with Jiang Tian and his wife. They were quite afraid. But at this moment, when it came to their fundamental interests, they couldn't stand it anymore. Zhao Xueqing was also shocked. She quickly said, "Grandfather, my ability is limited. I'm afraid I don't have the energy and time to manage the Nailin family." One of Nailin Bo's clan brothers stepped forward and said earnestly, "Brother, our Nailin family has never had a precedent of a woman taking on the role of the head of the family. It's definitely not a good thing for a hen to take over the morning. What era are we living in? Women can hold up half the sky. I think Qing'er's ability is much stronger than yours and mine." Nailin Bo didn't pay attention to his clan brother's suggestion. His gaze swept across the crowd and said coldly, "This is my decision. If any of you want to quit, quit immediately. Without you unfilial sons, the Nailin family would be better off." The old man exploded in anger. Nailin Li and the others looked bitter and didn't dare to speak. Moreover, they knew that Jin Sohyun was already on the way and would be here soon. And once Jin Zixuan arrives, Jiang Tian, just wait to be crushed to death. Just wait to be dismembered into 1,000 pieces. I'll let you be happy for 3 minutes. So what? Nailin Qinghe was the only one who spoke in a loud voice. "I object. She's an ominous person, a demon who will bring disaster to our Nailin family." Slap. Jiang Tian made a move and slapped her to the ground. His eyes were cold as he said, "You dare to scold my wife? You want to die. You think I don't dare to kill you?" Chapter 988. You dare to hit me? You dare to threaten me? Grandpa. Narenchingha's mouth was bleeding and her face was blooming. She looked at Nailan Bo pleadingly and shouted. However, Nailan Bo ignored her and looked at Zhao Xueqing with hope. Qingya, if these people from the Nailan family were useful, I wouldn't ask you for help. However, they are too disappointing. In the long run, the Nailan family will be destroyed in their hands. Grandpa, Zhao Xueqing's heart was in a dilemma. She didn't want her relationship with the Nailan family to be so stiff. If she stole her uncle's position, she was afraid that everyone would hate her. More importantly, she was now the mother of Sidoni, the female master of a peerless sect, and one of the top beauties in the world. Her position was supreme and her authority was unparalleled. How could she care about the small family business of the Nailan family? Seeing Zhao Xueqing looking at him with difficulty, Jiang Tian said lightly, Grandpa, Qing'er is pregnant. I'm afraid she doesn't have time to be the head of the family. If she reluctantly agreed, I'm afraid she doesn't have much energy to manage it. Hearing this, Nailan Bo's face stiffened. The disappointment in his heart was beyond words. Nailan Li and the other trash didn't know when to stop. They repeatedly offended Jiang Tian. It would be strange if Jiang Tian and Qing'er didn't have any feelings. It seemed that they couldn't hold on to this thigh. Then, Jiang Tian changed the topic and said, but Qing'er is also indebted to you. We won't forget. In the future, if the Nailan family is in trouble, I will lend a helping hand. Good. With Jiang Tian's words, I'm relieved. Nailan Bo laughed heartily, his old heart was comforted. At this moment, a sneer full of contempt and arrogance was heard. Is it up to you, Nailan Bo, to decide who will be the head of the Dragon Protector tribe? He was escorted by the old state preceptor and a few of his companions. Jin So-hyun was dressed in a long black robe. He was handsome and elegant. His face was gloomy as he slowly walked up the stairs. Jin So-hyun stared at Nailan Bo. However, the old imperial preceptor's eyes were like lightning as he stared at Jiang Tian with murderous intent. Zhao Xueqing hadn't realized that Jin So-hyun was looking for trouble. She shouted in surprise, Uncle Jin, why are you here? She had a good impression of Jin So-hyun. Back then, he had taken care of her mother with great care. It could be said that he was very affectionate. Naturally, I'm here to kill you, Nailan Li shouted. Narenchingha got up and smiled proudly. Kong Taechu, I asked you to get out, but you didn't. You even dared to hit me. Reclusive royalty is coming. I'd like to see how you can withstand the wrath of the true dragon. The others also had gloating expressions on their faces. Reclusive royalty didn't cultivate martial arts or spells. It was the emperor art from the dimensional space. It was a cultivation art. Jiang Tian was just an ant from the earth world. How could he be a match for it? Nailan Bo took a step forward and cupped his fists in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Mr. Jin, the Nailan family has been suppressing the dragon vein for 300 years. We have done our best to fulfill our duties. Even if your Aizen-Joro family has done us a great favor, our Nailan family should have repaid it, right? Sinner, you want to die? The ancestral family rules are passed down forever. It's not something you can change just because you want to. Nailan Bo, you can either be a slave for the rest of your life and obey the orders of the Aizen-Joro family, or die. Jin So-hyun's tone was like a glacier. It was arrogant, cold, and harsh. How many years has it been since the fall of the Qing dynasty? Your ancestors were muddle-headed and incompetent. They humiliated the country and caused Huaxia to fall into eternal damnation. Jiang Tian laughed and took a step forward. He looked at Jin Zishuan with a face full of sarcasm and sneered, now you're talking about your ancestors and putting on airs. You're calling yourself a king in the south. You're shameless. I've never seen such a shameless person. You're Kong Taechu. Jin Zishuan's expression was cold as he stared at Jiang Tiandao with murderous intent in his eyes. That's right. Jiang Tian nodded. You're really arrogant. Jin So-hyun laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at Jiang Tian and said, You refused to cooperate with me on reclusive royalty? I refused you, Jin So-hyun. I have no problem with cooperating with reclusive royalty, but you have to listen to my orders. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. But you, Jin So-hyun, want to snatch Kang Taechu's dojo? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Jin So-hyun's eyes flashed with anger. He said coldly, Kang Taechu, do you know that you're in big trouble now? You're fierce and murderous. You've caused bloodshed and made people angry. The Holy See and the Brahmin want to kill you. So what? Jiang Tian swung his sleeves and sneered. I've never said that I'm a good person. However, I'm still better than your Aizenjoro's ancestors who were humiliated by foreign enemies and had to beg for mercy like a pet dog. Their lives were ruined and the people had no way to make a living. The foreigners are happy, but the people are in trouble. To Europe, America, and Japan, I want to be a lion and a fierce tiger. But I'm better than your ancestors who were like docile sheep waiting to be slaughtered. I'm paying reclusive royalty to stop the Holy See and the Brahmin for you. That's your attitude. Jin So-hyun was furious and shouted. Do you know that we've been cleaning up after you, Kang Taechu? If it weren't for us, Kang Taechu would have been slaughtered. Like a noble descendant of the heavens, he spoke loftily. Do you think I want to care about you? I'm only helping you because of Chinger's mother. He looked down at Jiang Tian as if he was looking down at an ant, his face full of disdain as he snorted coldly. Now, if you agree to my original request, I'll use the reclusive royalty to help you get rid of this disaster. This is my ultimatum and also your last chance. Don't make a mistake. Jin So-hyun, what do I have to do with your reclusive royalty? Do I need your help? You think too highly of yourself. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. Now that he did, Jiang Tian was a little angry. Tianqing School has already announced that we don't need your help. Are you deaf? Originally, Tianqing School and Huaxia Long Formation had already arrived at the southwest border with the mobile Kuelian. They had opened their pockets, waiting for the Holy See and Brahmin to enter and blast them to ashes. However, the reclusive royalty went there to stop them. Tianqing School and Huaxia Long Formation waited for a long time, but to no avail. After all, the reclusive royalty and them were locked in a fierce battle. You can't kill the reclusive royalty along with them. After all, they were also from Huaxia. Kangju, I'll give you one last chance. Seeing that Jiang Tian was stubborn, Jin So-hyun was so angry that his face turned ashen. He trembled all over and shouted loudly. Kneel down and kowtow to me immediately. Otherwise, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Ah, make me kneel. You're courting death. Jiang Tian snorted coldly. He extended his jade-white palm and slapped down leisurely. Boom. Within a 3-kilometer radius, the world shook. A golden true essence palm of 7th metal suddenly fell. The golden giant palm pressed down on Jin So-hyun like a mountain, trying to make him kneel. How dare you? Jin Zishuan let out a tiger-like roar. His robe began to billow, and imperial chi began to emanate from him. A black dragon-like aura began to appear behind his back. It traveled along his spine and rushed to the top of his head, as if it wanted to soar up into the sky. He used to practice the Black Dragon Emperor art, which came from the Tianqing boundary and was also a cultivation art. In addition, he was half an immortal state warrior and his combat power was not much weaker than an ordinary Earth-level deity. That was why he dared to provoke Jiang Tian so recklessly. Black Dragon out. Open! He shouted. The Black Dragon Emperor Chi surged and became more than 10 meters tall, trying to break through the restriction formation. But what was unexpected was that the Black Dragon Emperor Chi only lasted for half a second before it was shattered together with the astral wind. Immediately after, an unstoppable force descended from the sky. The golden giant palm crushed the Black Dragon Emperor Chi effortlessly. With a bang, he fell to the ground and kowtowed. Jin So-hyun was defeated with one palm. How is that possible? The people of the Nayland family were shocked. The Jin clan and many other royal clans cultivated the region art. Even if Jin Zixuan was facing an earthly immortal realm expert, he would still be able to deal with them easily. But now, he was actually suppressed by Jiang Tian with a single strike. Kong Techu, how dare you force me to kneel? Jin So-hyun couldn't accept it and shouted angrily. Jin So-hyun was a member of the royal family and had a noble bloodline. But now, he was forced to kneel by Jiang Tian. This was a great humiliation. It was worse than killing him. Peasant? I dare you to call me that again. Jiang Tian pulled him up. Smith. Blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth and a few of his teeth flew out. Kongtu, kill me if you have the guts. Otherwise, the Aizen-Joro family will kill you. Jin So-hyun shouted angrily. Do you think I won't kill you? As you wish. Jiang Tian's purple eyes flashed and he was about to kill him. Chapter 989. Jiangtun, forget it. Zhao Xueqing couldn't stand it anymore. She stepped forward and said, no matter what, he has taken care of my mother. Reclusive royalty? Crown prince? He's just an ant that I can crush with ease. I'll give you one last chance. Don't be so reckless. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and shook his right arm. Jin So-hyun fell behind the Grand Master like a dead dog. The white-haired old man helped Jin So-hyun up and then slowly approached Jiang Tian. Kong Techu, you are indeed arrogant. Today, let me see what you can do. Jiang Tian said coldly, the last Grand Master of the Qing dynasty, the former sect master of the Kongtong sect, Fan Qilong. That's me. The old Grand Master didn't stop as his murderous aura surged. I heard that you were more powerful than Situ Shao in the late Qing dynasty. You have mastered the snake's saliva wind chasing claw. You reached the immortal state in your 30s and were known as the most powerful cultivator in Huaxia. Now that you are 300 years old, you should be an earth-level deity. Jiang Tian asked again. My past glory is not worth mentioning. Fan Qilong's voice was hoarse, but his murderous aura was still thick. You're quite modest. Jiang Tian said with a smile. I don't want to mention my past glory because I want to return to the Jianghu and kill you, the most powerful cultivator in the world. I want to defeat the Holy Sea and Brahmin and return to the top of this planet. Fan Qilong continued to walk forward. His eyes were cold and his crooked fingernails trembled slightly. Forget it, old man. I don't want to fight with you. You are 300 years old and your blood is drying up. Even if I don't kill you, you won't live for long. Jiang Tian mocked. Kill him, Grand Master. Then take down the Tianqing school and rule over Sidoni. Jin So-hyun had been humiliated time and time again. He hated Jiang Tian to the bone and lost his patience. He had absolute confidence in Fan Qilong. Fan Qilong is the trump card of the Aizen-Joro family. Kong Techu is no match for him. Seeing the state preceptor make a move, Nailin Li, Naran Qingha, Nailin Tu, and the others' dejection and fear were swept away. Their faces became very excited, as if Jiang Tian was dead for sure. One had to know that Fan Qilong was the sect leader of Kongdong. Back then, he was an existence that could compete with the Kunlun sect and the Qingqing sect. At the end of the Qing dynasty, Fan Qilong, as the country's imperial teacher, was invincible. Back when the Empress Dowager was chased out of the imperial city by the Eight-Nation Alliance, other than head eunuch Li Lianying, he was her bodyguard. He had once killed thousands of pursuers with a single strike of his sword and fought against a king sage of the Holy See. Even the Iha fist was taught by him. It was said that his disciples were good at divine fighting. They could make hand seals and chant spells to invite the gods into their bodies. They could withstand bullets and were not afraid of artillery fire. Jin So-hyun's martial arts were also taught by him. He was a real earth immortal powerhouse. Even if you call yourself a divine immortal, I'm afraid you don't live up to your name. After all, you are only in your 30s. Your cultivation is shallow and your combat experience is insufficient. How can you be a match for this old monster who has lived for hundreds of years? At this moment, Jin So-hyun was full of confidence. His eyes were shining with the light of wisdom, as if Jiang Tian was already a dead man. Fan Qilong, the most powerful man in Huaxia in the late Qing dynasty. Kong Teichu's head is mine. You are not qualified to kill him. But at this moment, a strange howl that could pierce through gold and crack stone shot straight up into the sky. Even the clouds were shattered. Get out of my way! This strange howl was like the roar of a tiger deep in the mountains. It shook the wilderness and the drizzle slanted. Within a radius of 3 miles, the earth and mountains shook. Everyone from the Nayland family was shaken to the point that they staggered back. They were dizzy, and their hearts were filled with disgust as they vomited. Even Nayland Li and Jin So-hyun, who were half a step away from the immortal state, couldn't bear it. Their faces were pale. Clang. Suddenly, rocks flew and mud arrows burst out. A deep pit with a radius of 5 or 6 meters was formed on the marble floor. Billowing waves of air pushed out. The momentum was terrifying. Everyone in the Nayland family was shaken to the point that they were thrown off their feet. Their eyes were filled with fear. A majestic figure, like a meteorite falling from the sky, fell heavily on the ground. In the billowing smoke and flames. Bang! In the muffled sound, a foot stepped out of the deep pit. The foot was wearing a pair of metal boots covered with mysterious runes. It was like an immortal treasure metal. As soon as that foot appeared, the aura of the entire cemetery grew sluggish. A sinister coldness enveloped the entire area, and a violent pressure surged out in all directions. Except for Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing, everyone felt that it was difficult to breathe and almost suffocated. A European powerhouse wearing medieval armor and holding a blood-stained spear walked out of the smoke and steam that permeated the air. His curly golden hair was draped over his shoulders. He had a full beard, a high nose, and deep eyes. His eyes were as blue as the sea. They were cold and wild, like a wolf that was choosing its prey. He had a complex temperament of divinity and bestiality intertwined on his body. It was holy, cruel, bright, and bloodthirsty. It was as if he could overlook the common people and punish the world. This is Saint Augustine. When he saw his face, Fan Qilong's heart instantly fell into the abyss. He was so scared that his face turned pale and his body trembled violently. When the 8-Nation Alliance invaded, Fan Qilong had fought with Saint Augustine, but he was no match for him. After all, the other party was the last adjudicator of the Holy See, the guardian of the Holy See's holy tomb. His combat strength was that of a genuine Saint King. His saint arts were omnipotent, and his spear was unpredictable. It's him! Jin So-hyun's expression changed drastically. He looked at Saint Augustine in horror. Nayland Li and the others were so scared that their expressions changed drastically. Cold sweat broke out instantly. State Preceptor Fan, I heard that you want to defeat the Holy See and ascend to the throne of the world's strongest? Why don't you go through me first? Saint Augustine's eyes were arrogant. He walked over with steady steps, making muffled thuds. The armor on his body rubbed against each other, making the sound of metal clashing. His Chinese was very pure and even had a Beijing accent. Powerful people like him used to roam the world, challenging and killing everywhere. They could almost master all kinds of languages. Old man, I don't dare. Fan Qilong panicked, his eyes filled with fear. He cowered like a little white rabbit in front of a ferocious tiger. He staggered back step by step. What he said just now was just a bluff at the start of the battle. How would he dare to fight the Roman Curia to the death? If he had the guts and the ability, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have been chased by the Holy See back then. Huh? You want to admit defeat? What a coward. Then kneel down and submit to the Holy See. Saint Augustine stood still with his spear in his hands. He looked at Fan Qilong in disdain, then glanced at Jin So-hyun and laughed. Are you a descendant of the decadent Qing dynasty royal family? Ridiculous yellow monkey, weak chicken. Kneel down too. Jin So-hyun was tongue-tied, but he didn't dare to speak. He shivered in fear as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His face was pale. Since he could remember, his father and brother had instilled in him the power of the West, not only strong ships and cannons, but also holy spells and magic. When he was 10 years old, he once bumped into a Caucasian student on the street. That Caucasian student scolded him, "Ridiculous yellow monkey, weak chicken, kneel down." He gave him a few slaps. When his father, Jin Lanxiong, found out, not only did he not help him, he even forced him to kneel down and whipped him. He was almost beaten to death. Since then, he had a deep psychological shadow. Even when he saw the face of a European, even if it was just an ordinary person, he would feel a little scared. This fear had become a kind of thinking habit, deeply implanted in his brain. Not to mention that he was facing a real holy king. Saint Augustine, don't be overbearing and bully the weak. Our Huaxia is the celestial empire, a country of etiquette. We have always convinced people with reason, we don't want to fight with you. I'm not afraid of you. Fan Qilong's body shivered, but he still mustered up his courage and shouted at the top of his lungs. He even had a sobbing tone, as if he was a resentful woman who was bullied. Jiang Tian lightly shook his head, his heart filled with sorrow. This is the state teacher of a country, yet he is so cowardly and fearful of the enemy. So what if I bully you and humiliate you? You want to convince people with reason? What a joke! The weak don't have the right to reason with the strong. Saint Augustine looked at Fan Qilong as if he was looking at a fool and said mockingly, "I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Either kneel down and submit to the Holy See, or die." Chapter 990. 3, 2, 1. He did not give Fan Qilong any time to think and attacked in the blink of an eye. Clang. His right foot stomped on the ground and the marble floor exploded. He leaped into the air like a ferocious tiger and charged towards Fan Qilong like a cannonball in the sky. "Saint Ogu, you're such a bully." Fan Qilong had nowhere to retreat. He roared and clawed at Saint Ogu with both hands. Black mist filled his hands and a foul stench filled the air. The black mist condensed into shadows of venomous snakes that flickered in and out. His curved nails turned pitch black and shone with a chilling light as he clawed at Saint Ogu. Boom! When the two of them collided, it was as if thunder had exploded. A bolt of lightning appeared out of nowhere and the entire Wu town could hear the deafening explosion. The drizzle instantly turned into white steam. The dark clouds seemed to have been blown away by the gods, revealing the blue sky and the bright sunlight. However, Fan Qilong was sent flying over 100 meters away by Saint Ogu's spear. Fan Qilong fell into the mud like a dead dog. His clothes were torn and tattered, hanging on his body like rags, revealing skin full of age spots. His bright and smooth braids were also messed up. His hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in dirt. Where was his original lofty and unrivaled charm? The whole place was dead silent. The Grand Tutor, lost so miserably. Jin So-hyun and the Nayland family were terrified. They shivered as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. "Broken, my hands are broken," Fan Qilong screamed. His hands were stained with blood. His skin was torn, his tendons were broken, and his nails were all shattered. He was best at martial arts with his hands. However, he was defeated in a second. He might not be able to use his cultivation anymore. What? The Grand Tutor lost in one move? Nayland Lee and the rest were so shocked that their faces turned pale. They could not believe it. In their hearts, the Grand Tutor was like a god. Grand Tutor Fan Qilong was defeated by this person before. Nayland Bo was not surprised. He shook his head and sighed. "Jin So-hyun, are you still not going to kneel down? People of a fallen country, it is your honor to submit to the Holy See. Or let me twist your head off." Sheng Aogu's eyes were filled with arrogance, and his face was filled with cold, killing intent. Jin So-hyun was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He staggered backward, just like his ancestors. "This old man will fight it out with you." Fan Qilong roared, exerting all his strength, and rushed towards Saint Ogu like a black gust of wind. Although this kind of person was sinister and vicious, there was one thing about him. He was loyal and devoted to his master. As a vassal, the monarch worries about the vassal and the vassal works hard. When the monarch is humiliated, the vassal dies. He had no choice but to fight regardless of life and death. However, Saint Augustus's hand reached out and a ray of holy light shot out, directly grabbing Fan Qilong. A large hand that was like an iron clamp tightly grabbed his throat and lifted him up like an eagle grabbing a chick. And remember, in front of me you, Fan Qilong, are just a weak ant. Saint Augustus grinned and then smashed Fan Qilong to the ground like a rag. Rumble. Another big hole appeared on the marble floor. Fan Qilong screamed. His face was pale and gloomy as he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Grand Tutor of the Qing dynasty? Unfortunately, you're too weak. Saint Augustus's face was full of mockery. He raised his right foot and stomped down. Crack. Fan Qilong's sternum was broken. Blood spurted out like an arrow. Fan Qilong's chest was pierced through by his foot. However, Fan Qilong did not die. After all, he was an earth immortal powerhouse with vigorous vitality. His pupils were dilated like a fish out of water. He opened his mouth and gasped for breath, spurting out blood. The number 1 powerhouse of the Qing dynasty in Huaxia is too weak. Saint Augustus chuckled and stomped on Fan Qilong's head again. Bang! Fan Qilong's head exploded like a fragile watermelon. Red and white matter splattered in all directions. His braids were also sent flying far away. Oh my God! Feeling his face burning, Jin So-hyun reached out his hand and touched a round eyeball. He was so scared that his knees went soft and his whole body twitched. He almost knelt on the ground. This is the former number 1 powerhouse of Huaxia, a trashy existence. Saint Augustus looked up and laughed complacently. Okay, people of the Qing dynasty, Nayland family of the Dragon Protector bloodline, I'm too lazy to make a move. All of you kneel down and submit to me. Pledge your loyalty to the Holy See and sincerely atone for your sins. You have no faith and are all guilty. Dead silence. The whole place was dead silent. Anger, but it was a silent, suppressed anger. The dignified state preceptor of the Qing dynasty was trampled to death like this. But at the same time, a feeling of helplessness and despair rose in everyone's heart. That was the state preceptor of the Qing dynasty, Fan Qilong, an earth immortal. Who could be his opponent? Jiang Tin, please help us and save our Nayland family. At this time, Nayland Li and the others were frightened and trembling. They looked at Jiang Tian for help. Narenqinghe even knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. If they didn't submit, only death would await them. If they submitted, they would become a big joke. After all, they were the dignified Dragon Protector bloodline and had their own dignity. Only Jiang Tian could make a move. Why should I help you? Jiang Tian didn't even look at them. You're not going to save us? After all, we're family. Nayland Li said pitifully. Why should I save you? When did you treat us as family? Jiang Tian snorted and said indifferently, didn't you want to leave the Nayland family? Jiang Tian asked in a powerful and resonating voice, didn't you threaten me to submit to the Jin family? Oh, the Jin family is very powerful. The old state preceptor is very powerful. You should go ask him for protection. Nayland Qinghe and the others were stunned. They were shocked and panicked, and they regretted it. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so heartless and turn his back on them. But when they thought about it, Jiang Tian didn't seem to be wrong. Nayland Bo also sighed helplessly. These children had offended Jiang Tian yesterday and spoke rudely today. How could they blame Jiang Tian? Narenqinghe and the others finally couldn't bear the pressure and knelt down in front of St. Augustine. What are you doing? Where's the dignity of the Dragon Protector bloodline? Are you trying to anger me to death? Nayland Bo didn't expect his grandchildren to be so disappointing. Grandpa, saving our lives is more important. If we lose our lives, what dignity is there to talk about? Narenqinghe said with a frown. Nayland Bo still wanted to say something. Suddenly, anger, unwillingness, humiliation, and many other complex emotions flashed across Jin So-hyun's face. But in the end, he knelt down and even kowtowed to beg for mercy. Dad, you're right. The imperial family's fortune is broken and the true dragon is gone. What dragon are we protecting? What dignity is there to talk about? Nayland Li chuckled and kowtowed to St. Augustine without any shame. Everyone else followed suit. For a moment, everyone present was kneeling. Only Jiang Tian, his wife, and Nayland Bo were left standing there. Seeing this, Nayland Bo's face was dejected and miserable. He laughed crazily and said, "If people don't fear death, why should they fear death?" His eyes were filled with sorrow and despair. Ha! The great Qing's destruction was already destined. What broken fortune, destroyed dragon veins, it's all nonsense. It's all because of one thing: rotten, muddle-headed, soft, cowardly, too disappointing. Even the dignified reclusive royalty is kneeling to me. How satisfying! Seeing this, St. Augustine was overjoyed and laughed arrogantly. No wonder you Huaxia people are called the sick men of East Asia. The cultivation techniques of Huaxia are also so weak. Ha, I really look down on you. But in my eyes, you're just a bunch of ants. I won't kill you. I just need to let the world know the power of the Holy See. The Great Huaxia has a history of 5,000 years. There are countless people with extraordinary abilities. How can a bastard like you have the right to comment on it? Suddenly, a cold voice sounded. It was Jiang Tian who stepped forward and reprimanded St. Augustine. "Jiang Teng, don't mess around." Nayland Bo was shocked to the point his face changed drastically, and he pulled Jiang Tian. It was rumored that Jiang Tian had used the space-time reversal saber art in his battle with Yi Tianren and was heavily injured. Of course, according to what Nayland Li and the others said, Jiang Tian could still use some psychic abilities, but this did not mean that Jiang Tian could compete with St. Augustine. If Jiang Tian died, who would the Nayland family rely on in the future? If Jiang Tian died an unnatural death, how was he going to explain to Qinger's mother after he passed away? "Kang Teichu, you're crazy. Kneel down and admit defeat." Jin So-hyun also turned his head and reprimanded. His eyes looked like they could eat people. Everyone was kneeling down and submitting, enduring humiliation in exchange for a chance to live. But with St. Augustine's murderous personality, he would definitely be enraged. Not only would he kill Jiang Tian, he might even kill everyone present. "Kang Teichu, are you crazy? We begged you just now and you didn't help. Now that the Westerners have agreed to let us go, you're meddling in other people's business." Nayland too and the others roared. Narenqingha and the others turned pale as they hesitated whether to pull Jiang Tian back or not. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.